Hospital port as pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hapanwo TV and a warm 15-minute greeting to you all from Oxford, the original 15-minute city. I hope you're all doing very well. I'm doing very well because I am off on another adventure. Yes, it's been a while since I've been on one, and so it's good to get out and go on one. Excuse me. I'm heading, well, let me show you where I'm heading. And so this is where I'm going today. I'm going to the Weird Weekend North, a conference about paranormal, UFOs, and cryptozoology, and ghosts and things, at a lovely little spot called the Rixton with Glazebrook Community Hall, which is, well, if you've watched my reportage from last year, you'll know, because you will have seen it, or if you've been yourself, of course. And indeed, I will put a link in the description box to last year's reportage. So, you can watch that if you haven't already. Speakers, you've got Claire Davey, Chase Vault and the Terror of Tropical Tombs. Oh my God, that sounds like a title of a horror movie. Rob Gandy, The Case of Devil Worship in the 1960s, Greater Manchester and Potential Psychic Contagion. I've got this image of Christopher Lee in a dark suit and people like that. Peter Cushing. Glenn Vaudrey, organiser of the event. A new look at the classic Scottish sea serpents. Brian Hoggard, Within Walls, the archaeology of counter-witchcraft. Mark Ollie, Crystal Skulls. Oh, I met Mark, I know. I met him at, of course I met him, didn't I? Blackpool, if you remember. And he showed me some of the skulls he's got. Steve Jones, Masonic Wicker. That's interesting. Richard Freeman, on the track of the Orang Pendek. He still hasn't found it, but he's still trying. Deborah Moretti, another Scottish woman. Ancient witches and modern folk tales in the archaeological records of northern Italy. The Great Borini Torquemada in the minds of the Inquisitor. That's the Spanish Inquisition sort of thing. David Adams, My Encounters with the Other Side. Looks good, doesn't it? I've actually interviewed Glenn, the organiser, and I'll put a link to that in the description box as well on Hapanwo Radio, so you can check that out too. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It'll be fun. So, better head off and get there. Okay, we've reached Birmingham. It's Birmingham out there, but this coach is very late, about 40 minutes, and it's now just coming up to 20 to 2, and my connection was due to leave at past. Now sometimes they wait if they know they've got passengers aboard, and sometimes they don't. The driver wouldn't guarantee me that this time they'd wait. So when we get into Digbeth, we'll find out. And it's possible they'll transfer me to another service if this one's gone, if the one I was going to connect has gone. So just have to wait and see. Good news, guys. My connection did wait. It was a quarter of an hour, so I'm now on the second coach heading north. In a sense, it may have been for the best, because it means I don't have to hang out in Birmingham Coast Station for an hour, or whatever long it would be. It's not the best place to wait, and it seems like it's the sort of central node of it's the central hub of transport. So everyone does.
Welcome all on board this National Express 120 service up to Manchester. We apologise about leaving on delay. Well,
blame me.
It's been requested.
Right, guys, I'm in Manchester now. I'm back again. Last time I was here was last year, literally about a year ago, when I came to go to the Weird Weekend North. I'm now going to head for the station. Now, I've thought about going to the Shoot Hill interchange to get in the bus again. If you remember from the previous video, check the link in the description box. It's a very pleasant bus ride to Warrington from here, but our time's getting on a bit. That coach was over half an hour late. So, and also everyone's made arrangements to meet in the pub at 8. So I need to get to Warrington, get into my hotel, and then get to Rixton with Glazebrook, which is like, this is a good hour's walk from the hotel. So I need to get my ass to Warrington now. So I'm going to go straight to I'm going to get the train. I'm going to go up to the station and get the train. So I'm going to take a walk up there. I've got my... You may think these are a bit old-fashioned, but I love them. Manchester Mini A to Z. Can't be a good old paper map. So I should be able to navigate myself quite easily. It's something I'm quite good at. It's up this way, I think. So here we go. This area might look familiar to you. I did come through this way last time, and it's immediately looks familiar to me because, and this bit here as well, because this is the Piccadilly Gardens. And the reason it's familiar, of course, I feel like I know, even before I came here, I felt like I knew it, is because, well, I watched the Charlie Veach channel. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. I've been sort of watching Charlie ever since he was in the Truth Movement, before he went on the BBC and changed his mind. And this is a famous tram stop of fights. Charlie's had loads of fights down there and here. Everywhere he goes, he says, well, I mean, I can't really do impressions of Charlie, you know. My chin's too small and I don't have these really expensive sunglasses. But he was always coming in here to, what's he say? I'm gonna antagonise the crackheads until they go for me, and then I'll film them. That's basically his channel these days. And over here, I think, is the what's he call it? The most violent McDonald's in the world. It's somewhere around here. There's a branch of McDonald's which based around here somewhere, which basically after he says there's this thing called the witching hour, which is basically between 3 and 4 o'clock, which is when kids come out of school because they always go into McDonald's and get themselves a burger or something. And it's over there, I think, somewhere around here. Anyway, and there's always fights and things like that. There it is, it's over there. You can see in the distance there. It's that one there. And of course there's always the kids. They have a security guard in there every afternoon. Yeah. So yeah, if I don't know if I'll see the Veach today. If I do, I'll go and say hello to him. I won't be nasty to him. If he happens to be here, I'll just sort of like put him on my channel, he can put me on his. But obviously, you know, I think I think he made a terrible mistake. Obviously, I don't believe he deserved all the abuse he got, which was really quite extreme. But he did make a really horrific mistake. But firstly, going on the BBC at all. Secondly, all that stuff he's, you know, oh, I used to be a 9/11 conspiracy theorist, but now I've changed my mind because there should be a Lego tower and some egg and flour, and there's that song, you know, Lego fucking towers. I don't know if you've heard that song. Someone wrote like a rap about him. The TV show is called 9/11 Conspiracy Road Trip. Bit infamous, you can get it. It was banned originally, but I think it's still floating around in certain places, probably old tech. And there was a follow-up series, a 3-part follow-up series, where the BBC asked me to be on it, and I told them in polite but no uncertain terms, not on your fucking Nelly, mate. Yeah, I do have there are limits to my foolhardiness and recklessness. So now I'm just going to find my way to the station. If I see Charlie, I'll let you know. Right, now I've headed my way. I need to go to the toilet. Now there's some toilets in the coast station, but they're behind a turnstile. I think that one of the things I really consider a total rip-off are turnstiles on public toilets. So because I watched the Charlie Veach channel, of course, though, I know very well you can actually go to the toilet in the Arndale Centre for free. So I'm going to go in there right now. Let's have a look. First of all, I want to steal some photons from inside this bank. And the security guard's going to come out and he's going to say, "Don't film here, please." And I'll say, "I'm giving myself permission." "Are you telling me it's not allowed?" "No. Yeah, I'm on a public street and there's nothing you can do about it." I don't think he actually talks like that. That's a sort of close approximation to his voice, his master's voice that I can do. Anyway, I do hope I bump into him. Actually, it'd be fun. But there's no sign of him at the moment. He's obviously stalking another district in Manchester looking for victims. He's going further afield as well. He's been to Liverpool, Leeds, Stoke-on-Trent, places like that. And here we are, Arndale Centre. Alright guys, I'm at a place now, you can just see it on that sign there. It's called Newton-le-Willows. It's a half French name there. And I've managed to get out of Manchester. It actually wasn't very easy. It's like, I went to Manchester, Victoria. By the way, is Manchester still called Manchester? Or has it been changed to Personchester or non-binary Chester? I don't know. Anyway, I've now got to get to Warrington, and apparently I can do that this way, but I've got to wait about half an hour for another train. Still, it's quicker than the bus. It's not a bad little station actually here. It's quite pleasant. Very different from the Manchester stations. I find it a little bit too hectic. Manchester, I don't know. I mean, it's not like, obviously, Charlie V's, when he wanders around, he goes looking for trouble. I mean, I don't think Manchester is an exceptionally troublesome place, but it's got a lot of a tense energy to it, I think. So I'm on the last leg of my journey now to Warrington. When I get to Warrington, I've got to get to the hotel, check in, and then I've got to find my way to the pub where I'm meeting the others. Good news is, once I'm on the train, it's actually a 12-minute journey from here to Warrington, so that's not too bad at all. Right, strange. I've made it to Warrington anyways. It's about must be about 22:07 now. I might be a little bit late I might get to the pub slightly after 8 o'clock, but I probably won't be the only one. But I'm not going to go with there's loads of police cars down there for some reason. Probably a crashed UFO. Couldn't be anything else, could it? Or it may just be there's a police station somewhere nearby. I don't know. But anyway, this is Warrington. Warrington, Witness, Wigan, Leeds. I'm thinking of that KLF song. I've got to get to the hotel, check in, and I'm going to head straight out to the pub at Brixton with Glazebrook. So quite a long walk ahead of me. I'm going to walk to the hotel. I'm not going to mess around with taxis and buses at this time. The taxis are probably all cashless anyway. So it's not been a bad journey despite the delays. Could have been worse. I mean, I have got here in reasonable time. It's just the weather's not been brilliant. I haven't been able to just really relax properly. I have been reading a book though. I've been reading it online with my phone in the browser. Stephen Molyneux has a new novel called The Present, and I read nearly all of it. It's actually pretty depressing. It's very dystopian, about the collapse of civilization and everything like that. He's in that sort of mood at the moment. I'm listening to him on my earphones right now as well. But that'll pass the time. We'll keep walking up here until I get to Sankey Street. Nothing to do with David Sankey, I don't know. There's a UFO artist called David Sankey. There's lots of pictures of UFOs, illustrations for books, covers and things like that. Then I've got to head for, basically it's quite easy to get to. I won't need the map, you just go straight ahead until you reach the junction 21 of the M6, and the hotel is right there. It's the same place I stayed last time. So I don't know how long it will take me. I'll probably find out more in a little while. But anyway, best foot forward. I'm an ex-hospital porter. Walking is in my blood. Here we go. Look at that. Look at that. It's these gates of the park. The parks don't really have any fence, but then there's this big gate here. That's really beautiful. Amazing work of art, that is. Alright guys, I'm at the Premier Inn. I've just arrived and checked in. I didn't do any filming. I don't really have time. I need to get out there to the Brixton with Glazebrook area and meet my friends at the pub. Although they're eating early. I mean, I'll explain more in a minute. I'll probably film again when I'm over the road. I've got this complicated crossing to deal with, as you remember from last year. But there's the Premier Inn there, junction 21. M6. It's very nice actually in there. I've got a ground floor room, rather unusually. And I haven't had one of those since, oh, it was when I went to Denmark, do you remember? I stayed at the Travelodge at Gatwick, yeah. It was some hotel at Gatwick. I had a ground floor room there, if I remember. Since then, no, I've always been upstairs. Which is handy, especially if there's a fire. I was getting out. Now, I've got to cross over this road and get onto there's a road here, you can't really see it. You can't really see it very well, but there's a road I've got to cross over, then go through the junction on the pedestrian, on the pedestrian pathway, rather than trying to stay on this side. So I'll do that. Okay, I'll now negotiate this junction. I'll see you at the other end. And here I am on the long walk to the pub, Brixton and Glazebrook, from junction 21. It's quite a, well, it takes about 3/4 an hour for an ex-hospital porter like me, an hour for a civilian. But it's actually, I don't know, it's something appropriate about it for a conference like this, because it's very spooky. It's not, I don't know, it's like walking through a dark path in the middle of the woods. You're by the side of a main road, but it's just, in the darkness, to see fields on either side, there's forests, there's a little bit of woodland. Even though it's a busy road, it kind of gives that slightly macabre atmosphere you need for a good paranormal UFO sort of, and cryptozoological content. I'm going to say conspiratorial, but there's nothing. The only conspiracy theories at Weird Weekend are brought up by me. It's my Helen Duncan talk. Was it 2018 where I spoke? So I'm heading there. A couple of things I'm pissed off about. Firstly, Steve Mayrer's not going to be there. That's a disappointment. He's cancelled. I was looking forward to seeing him. He's doing a lot of filming with Zohar at the moment. If you go to UAM TV on YouTube, you'll see a lot of his excuse me, videos. But he was going to speak here and he's not. But I'll see him at Awakenings in August, because he's like on the organising team for that. There's like a farmhouse there in the distance. All those lights and things look quite spooky. Another thing I'm pissed off about. I was hoping to get a meal at the pub. Now I can't. I was actually Janet, one of the people that rung me and told me we were going to book a table for 8. In which case I'd have been late anyway, because it's about 8 o'clock now, and it's going to take me I'll be close to 9 o'clock by the time I get there. But then she called me and asked me how close I was, because they were going to stop serving food at 8 o'clock, so the others had to eat then. And they said, if you get here quickly, you can, order something, order something for you and get here quickly. But of course I couldn't. I suppose I could have got a taxi or something, but I just probably bloody cashless. And I had to check into the hotel as well, which always takes time. So I said, well, I'll find a chippy. So I went around and looked for some chippies. I couldn't find one. In the end, I had some sandwiches from a Tesco Express. That's my dinner for tonight. Never mind, it's food. A lot of people don't have that, so I'm not complaining really. But it just, what pisses me off is that this wouldn't have happened if National Express hadn't completely fucked up their whole schedule. National Express but the first time I came to Warrington was to speak at Weird Weekend North 2018. The coach dropped me not far from where the station was. You get a coach direct to Warrington. It's only because National Express in their beneficence decided to completely reorganise their entire schedule, and suddenly they don't call at Warrington anymore. Neither does a megabus. I checked them as well. So I had to go either to Manchester or Liverpool and change, or get a train. Of course, I chose Manchester and got a train. Now last year was a problem, because National Express was still doing a service that sort of left sort of 8ish and arrived at 2. Now they've banned that, and they've got rid of that now. The first one I could get goes at 11, arrives in Manchester at 4 p.m. Saves me 4 hours to get to Warrington, check in, and get to the damn pub. by which day, so thanks to National Express, I haven't had a proper meal tonight. It's not the food that's the problem, I know. I've eaten, it's the meeting with the friends and socialising thing. I mean, of course, I'll probably do the same thing again tomorrow night, so it's not the end of the world. I'm just annoyed. Yeah, so I'm walking along here. It's not the sort of place where you get 411. You know, it's just, I can't. It still has that feel to it, this walk, which I said, I'm not scared or anything. In a sense, it's kind of appropriate for this kind of conference. Yeah, I'm here at the Black Swan here in Rixton with Glazebrook, and I'm here with all my friends here, so you can see them all there. So it was a long journey, but it was worth it. I'm here at last. Okay, guys, I've left the pub. I'm going to go home now. I'm going to having a walk back. The rain has stopped, which is nice. So I'm looking forward to a pleasant walk back to the hotel. It was lovely to see my friends again. The pub shut surprisingly early. They were turfing us out at 11:15. Maybe that's a countryside thing. Maybe local to Cheshire. I don't know. But we had a really, really good talk. I've just heard from one of my friends that there was a person attending the conference this weekend who is making a documentary about alien abduction and similar topics. Now, you know, that did, and they asked me, would I be willing to speak to this person, maybe do an interview or put them in touch with someone who'd be a good subject matter. Now, I did, obviously, I was my warning flags, you know, you can guess the first questions I asked. Who's this person working for? Are they on commission to like one of the big terrestrial platforms? The answer was no, that he's not. He's actually very alternative. He generally makes like low budget horror movies and things like that. And I thought, right, that's maybe he's not so bad. Anyway, I'm going to talk to him, and this person, my friend, vouches for him, and she's someone whose judgment I find quite reliable. So we'll see how it goes, but I will, we'll see what happens. I'll talk to him, because I'm willing to work with people in the media if I believe they're honest, and I believe that they are not going to make hit pieces for like Channel 4 and BBC. It's, you know, ironically, you know, the less successful their production will be, the more likely it is to be a sincere and genuine rational scientific study of whatever subject we're talking about here. Anyway, I'll go in. I'll probably go straight to bed. I've had a long day. I'll show you more of my room in the morning. I've got breakfast booked, which is nice. So, and then there's plenty of time because doors don't open at the venue till 10, so I probably won't leave the hotel till about 9, so plenty of time to mess around. See ya. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. There's my neatly made bed. No, I've just been sleeping in it. Here I am at Travelodge here at junction 21 of the M6 in Warrington. And I'm just going to give you a show you around my room, which is actually very different in many ways to a Travelodge. Here we go, armchair there for a start. And here's my view out the window, which is rather restricted because I'm on the ground floor. Yeah, but anyway, I've got my lard eating t-shirt on there because I won it fair and square, and it's a symbol of my championship. And by the way, I keep it this year by default because they're not going to do the lard eating contest this year. So you have like your usual tea, coffee, and set and things like that. Television. Now, I've actually woke up this morning. I couldn't believe it. I went to Channel 63, Blaze TV. They got UFO Week. Can you believe that? I mean, that's amazing. It's almost like they knew I was coming. That's a nice picture. It's different to the cherry picture from Travelodge, which is quite a pleasant image there. You get like coat hangers and things which you don't get at Travelodge. It's got one of these things that you can't do anything unless you put your key card into there. So you put that in there, and then only then can you operate the lights and electrics, which I think is a bad idea because it's just easy to go out and forget it. And if you do that, you'll have to go to reception and have to come and let you in, I suppose. Yeah. Anyway, lots of mirrors. This is obviously for the well-preened kind of narcissist, this hotel room. So, well, Do you think I fit in or not? I don't know. All right, so here is the bathroom. And you get like a much nicer shower here. It doesn't have the warning sign on, so they're not scared of getting sued. It has one of the detachable. It doesn't have a psycho shower. It's kind of like a detachable thing which you can then spray all over yourself. I haven't actually had a shower yet, but and there's the stuff there. Your toilet is your standard one, of course, and well, and you actually have your own hairdryer, which is not really much good to me, really, is it? Anyway, guys, I just had a lovely breakfast. You get like it's worth getting the breakfast here, just £10, and you get unlimited buffet. You know, full English, continental, yogurt, cereal, stuff like that. Very, very nice indeed. And I met up with a guy called Graham, who is someone I met here last year, and he's staying here again. So a guy from Scotland, and I had a long conversation with him over breakfast. So yeah, I'm looking forward to today. I'm going to head off now to the venue. Doors open 10 o'clock, which means by the time I arrive there, should just be opening. I found my key. I found my car. I'm going to say called my keys. I'm going to grab my key now because I don't want to forget it. So I'll take my key now. There we go. Talking about, what was it? Yeah, what was I talking about? I can't remember. Anyway, we're going to go to the venue now, and I've got my. I'll show you my notebook. Let me show you my notebook. I've got this one here. Oh, this is the one given to me by Truth Seekers. I found my ticket there, so that. I thought I'd lost it, but I have actually found it. When I was cleaning my room out a few months ago, I must have I put all the paperwork in one pile, but I found it now anyway. Here's my Truth Seekers notebook. There we are, remember that? There's my wonderful bookmark there. So, time to head off, I think. We're going over a bridge now. That is the M6 there. One of those crazy Swedish twins. It wasn't around here where the crazy Swedish twins were. It was another part of the motorway, but this was the motorway. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Brixton with Glazebrook. And this is what this particular location looks like during the day. It's very nice, isn't it? Yeah. I'm actually walking now to the venue, and the weather has improved enormously, I'm pleased to say. Yeah. There's a nice, look at that, you can see the yellow blossoms there on the crops. Very nice indeed. That's the all-seed rape. That will be out pretty soon, and when it is, that's when you get the first crop circles. It seems that it's a little bit late this year because well, winter in Britain ended about a month late. So yeah, I'm still seeing daffodils around everywhere, even though it's actually April the 1st. So yeah, April Fool. No, everything I do on Hapanmo is just a joke. April Fool, of course not. Just is today. I'm going to watch the Spaghetti Tree movie. It's very funny, good documentary. But yeah, I'm just sort of wandering along here in sunny Cheshire. Funny how these things come to mind, because since I mentioned the Eriksson twins earlier, I kind of it's kind of like, I suppose it all came back into my mind. I've been thinking about it a lot, because that case just went completely cold. But I don't know, a few years ago now that happened. But they were like these two, the crazy Swedish twins, Ursula and Sabina Eriksson. Yeah, these are two identical twins who were caught. They were caught walking along the M6 motorway, and I just quickly looked it up. It was Kiel services. And Kiel is like quite a long way south of here, so it's nowhere near Warrington. But it was on the M6, and then what followed after that is quite an extraordinary incident, which as someone like me with a lot of experience in the emergency services, I find it hard to believe even happened. But as you know, they were acting very strangely. They were on a National Express coach, stopped at Kiel Services. They started acting very strangely together. We were not allowed back onto the coach because of their behaviour, and then so they started walking up the motorway, up the hard shoulder. And when they were stopped by the police, they made a run for it across the motorway. They tried to cross the motorway and were run over. One of them, I can't remember which one it was. One of them was run over by a lorry. Now you can hear he was actually caught on camera because they were doing the Motorway Cops documentary. When one of the policemen said possible fatality, I mean, she went right under the wheels of a bloody 18-ton articulated lorry. I mean, not many people survive that kind of injury. She did. Even though she had both her legs, she had like multiple fractures in both her legs. Any normal person certainly would never. You'd probably walk again. They could fix your bones, but you wouldn't be able to walk as well as you'd never be able to walk again the same way. The other one was struck by 2 cars. What happened next is extraordinary. The sister who was struck by 2 cars starts fighting. She appears uninjured, and she starts fighting the cops off. It takes like about 6 of them to hold her down. The other one, even the one with the crossed legs, is sitting up. I mean, to have that kind of injury, you'd be unconscious. I mean, there's no way you'd probably even be conscious, let alone sitting up. I mean, you'd be like delirious at best, and in agony, in an agony of pain. And oh God, it's like, that's very strange. And then the uninjured woman was then taken to the police station. After she was released, she started wandering around looking lost. So 2 local men took them into their care. She killed one of them. She stabbed one of them to death. She then jumped off a motorway bridge, just like the one I've crossed over. And she jumped off a motorway bridge and fell 40 feet onto the tarmac below. Suffered a minor skull fracture and 2 broken ankles, which is again a minor injury considering that. Lucky not to be hit by another vehicle. If that would have done anything wrong with her. She was given 5 years in prison for murdering and stabbing this guy to death. She had diminished responsibility. I think there was mitigating circumstances. Her sister was treated in hospital and then released. She'd been in there for probably a good few weeks. They went home. One of them lives in the United States, the other lives in Ireland. They're both married. And then they've just disappeared. I mean, any journalist trying to track them down can't find them. Very strange indeed. They said that they expressed what has been described as fantasies, that they were being persecuted, they were being hunted down by bad guys and things like that. One of them shouted, "They're going to take our organs." I mean, I don't know what was going on there. Some people explained it as drugs, people taking drugs, things like that. They were taking some kind of drug. And of course, it is possible they were super soldiers of some kind. And sure, you can't discount that. I mean, there's many people who claim to be super soldiers. I mean, there's a super soldier conference now every year, I think, somewhere in the United States. And I'm sure most of the people are fantasists. But in the case of these 2 ladies, based on their behaviour and the kind of resilience they appear to show against injury, you gotta wonder, who they were. Some people say they're part alien, they're Nordic aliens. Well, they sort of look it, they have this classic Scandinavian looks, blonde hair, blue eye, that kind of things. Well, it's just an interesting thought that's been running through my head as I walk up this lovely countryside here in Cheshire, in the early morning. And here we are, there's the Black Swan over there, where I was last night. And here is the venue, I've arrived. They should be opening, it's 10 o'clock on the dot. They should be opening the doors any time now, so very much looking forward to going in there. So I'm looking for some familiar faces. But this is the Rixton with Glazebrook Community Hall, which you'll recognise from last year. Yeah, it's nice to be back, I must say. So yeah. Hey Janice, morning. How you doing? So I've already seen someone I know. All right, ladies and gentlemen, how many of you get this joke? Let me know. This is a TCO on this gentleman here. So yeah, it's good. And here is the venue. As you see, we've got a full house this year, and yeah, I mean, I'll show you the stalls later, but Rob Gandy's the first speaker, but he hasn't started yet, so we're just basically queuing to get the tea and coffee right now, so I just need a cold drink right now. Now these are amazing images we've got here, these are pictures here. I'll show you some of these things here, look at that. Looks like someone's a ghost hitchhiking there by the look of things, on the bridge. And this is aliens landing above a city there, you see. I don't know if that's a space city or... There's like some humans there, some human figures on the rocks watching these spaceship craft. Oh, you see, he has like what looks like rocket engines, which of course these craft don't actually have, do they? It's a lovely scene now, winter scene. And that looks like a policeman with a truncheon, and it says here, Testosterone Trogs Division. Look at these books here. Oh look, Dark Moon, I know that one. Case open. Yeah. Oh, is that Crowley? Falsifications of Case Closed by Harold Iceberg. That's probably going to be quite interesting. It's an old book. You can pause and read this, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, it's the Kennedy assassination. All right. Wizards, a history. You thought you knew it all from Harry Potter? No. Colin Wilson. Colin Wilson was a hospital porter, so I should buy that, shouldn't I? Astrology Goblin Companion. Look at these here. Gemini. Oh, cool. I'm Libra. I am. Cancer. Libra. That's me, Libra. I love the Bigfoot there. Yeah. Two Bigfoot pictures.
Well, question mark. That's how I imagine.
Bigfoot question. Yeah. I think they look like those. Yeah. Sun sign Aries. Taurus. And then we have Ouija boards. Rain or shine, the ferryman on the right.
Oh, look lovely on the wall.
There's all these Ouija boards. These Ouija boards. Did you say your grandson made them, you said?
Me and my granddaughter.
Your granddaughter? Yeah. Your granddaughter. They're beautiful, these. Yeah. Oh, look at that. There's a demon child there. Halloween, get in the mood. It's early, but a Ouija board and everything else. Alright, brilliant. Amazing stall. Hello guys, I've just come out for a bit of fresh air. The first talk is over. Rob Gandy did a very interesting talk. I'll say more later, I think. And it was pretty interesting. And there was a brief Q&A on Steve there behind me. And this guy. Oh, let me just. Whoops! I'm trying to. It's not working. I'm trying to zoom in there. The guy with the wire behind me. Give him a right lecture. I'll tell you. Already controversy has broken out, but that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's all good fun. We're in this little place here. I mean, it's like look at this Black Swan behind me. You see, that's actually that's booked out tonight. But I think I mentioned they got an ABBA tribute band. Yes. So we normally go and eat dinner in there, and we can't. So we're just basically ordering a massive takeaway, and we're going to eat them in the hall. There's not a lot else we can do. It's only we've doubled the population of this town overnight, and this little village overnight, and they could probably do a lot for us if they wanted to, but unfortunately they haven't really taken that opportunity. So thank you for the music, but not thank you for your paranormal conference. I think that's the kind of situation we have here. Look at that. That's nice, isn't it, that owl? I'll be saying a bit more about owls later, because the first talk was I think most interesting, because it covered that kind of area which I find fascinating. So I'll say more about that later. And here we actually have some more artwork here. This is the alien. Oh, like the little aliens. What's this? They're all having a beer. Aliens having a beer. There's another Bigfoot. This is a palmistry astrology thing. What's this? Oh, it's this is someone being, I think they're being tortured. This is frustration. UK fire sale, media bullshit, health, something warning, gender bending, immigration, political correctness, hate. Oh yeah, I know the feeling. Oh, this is good. This is that's like a Greek guy there. Yeah, Triumphius, and but he's standing in like what looks like a futuristic city. Who made these? You drew these? Oh, well done, well done. And those ones over there, did you make those too? They're very nice. I'm admiring the Bigfoot and aliens and things. Yeah, excellent. Right, well, it's our lunch break. I've just heard Claire Davey, a lady doing a very interesting talk about famous cemeteries and things like that, and I'll tell you more about that later. I'm just now in the pub. I'm in the, as you see, I'm in the Black Swan pub, just having a pint, as you can see here. You can see that all right. There we go. Yeah. This is really the only place to go. This pub. I mean, it's like I said, it seems like it's intermittent. For example, there's the ABBA tribute, like I said earlier. Even last night, they were, as I said, they only serve food up to 8 o'clock, which is why I couldn't eat here. They were shutting the bar at 10:30. This is really quite strange. Anyway, that's it. So we'll have to now just have to wait until 2 o'clock. We've got to be back. Okay, just heard Mark Ollie doing his talk. Very interesting it was about crystal skulls and human heads. I'll be saying more about the details later. I'll just show you a few of these. This stall is here now. I mean, you may remember these from last year. These various pictures here. But there's some new ones as well. I think loads of progress. Turkey. And there's like Dante's Inferno. That's Crowley, I think. Lady Chavez Lover. They've got all these old stories. That's interesting. Interesting old books they've got, like illustrated comic versions of old stories and things like that.
They went and started getting old, which is what happens. He got into his 60s or his 70s or whatever. So he went to his Masonic Lodge Master and he said to the Lodge Master, "What do I do with this?" He said, "Well, I'll look after it." So he gave it to the Lodge Master. Anyway, the Lodge Master in turn gets older and he's a friend of mine. So he contacts me and he says, "You're an archaeologist, aren't you? Do something with that." So I'm only the third European owner of this little fella. And it ticks all the boxes. It's just about big enough to be life size. It's child size. It's completely handmade. If you actually look at the quality of it as well, it's milky quartz at the front. It's clear shot through the middle and then smoky at the back. So they've gone to a lot of trouble to make it.
So when you said that the
Very
other
accurate.
ones that were not what you termed genuine,
Oh, I can
and
show
you
you
talked
one of
about
them.
the tooling marks, is that
Yeah.
because of the fact that that's got non-machining?
There's there's virtually no marks on it at all.
Yeah.
The Mitchell Hedges one has none. Literally none. So, I mean, if you can imagine how hard that is, somebody's had to sit there with, a piece of cloth and sand
Yeah.
and polish it. Well, it's like,
But ones like the classic
one
ones
takes
I've seen
hours.
for so long, it'd be like...
That's a machine-made one.
That was the one they traced back.
Made yesterday.
That's a fake one.
That's essentially, that essentially.
That was from, where was that from again, Mark?
South America.
How old?
Somewhere around about 4,600 years. because they stopped making them when the Spanish went over there. So around about 1520 to 1530 was the last, and then gradually that's it. They just stopped making them.
So when was this found again? Sorry.
It was found in well, it wasn't found. It came into European possession in the 1940s.
Oh right.
As far as we know. That's the story.
Was there ever any recorded history or any oral history that had been used for scrying? Like a
The
ball?
pink one is fake, and that one is real.
Well, no, because there's a gap.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You can see.
I think it's good for shine.
I think that can impact this impact when you first
Because like Mitchell Hedges' skull, if you shine a light out, it comes out. Mitchell Hedges' skull. If you shine a light underneath the Mitchell Hedges' skull,
The thing I've got those
its eyes light up.
I've
It's
got
really
those
weird.
tactical torches that are like God knows how many lumens in the truck. Stick that behind it and see what it does.
It's worth shooting.
Bounce a couple of people.
Once again, it's the fact that paying attention to where
You may get some sort of like an effect where everyone just turns into skeletons, you know. That's funny enough yeah, I mean the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the last Indiana Jones film, I enjoyed that actually. Lots of fans didn't like it. I thought it was quite good. The plot line though is actually not original. It's very similar to a book called The Crystal Skull by someone called Amanda Scott, which is a novel. It's never been adapted into a film. And I was surprised how similar the plot was. It's like maybe inspired, you know, the idea of getting these like 12 skulls, you've got to get them into a certain place at a certain time, and it sort of unlocks you. Yeah, I suppose, yeah, that's true, yeah. It's a really good book. I really enjoyed the book.
That would be when Mercury falls into the.
I'm curious to see what happens if you shine a light on
I
it.
was just going to say, should I do it for your photo?
If you get a light behind,
You can see it shows the face.
Oh, it's heavy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to shine a light through it now, ladies and gents.
It is heavier than I thought. It's such a small thing.
You end up with lead crystal, which is an impurity that gives it extra weight. If you want to shock how heavy something is, try picking that fella up. He's a lot heavier than he looks. Hey, look at that.
That's what I'm trying to find.
Sure, okay, I'm getting blinded by the light.
When you shine a light in it, what happens? Does it
It's
light
like
go all the way through?
You can do it the other way down, round. Put the phone down flat and sit him on top of the phone if you want to.
That's a great idea.
Do that. There you go. Look, there we go.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we've done that a few times with him, and
Lights up inside it.
there we are.
Its eyes light up.
Everything just
See,
goes.
the Mitchell Hedges skull does that too.
Yes, it
Put the light
does.
underneath
Yes, it
the
does.
eyes light up.
By the time you look at it as a complete object, it's quite amazing.
It's
It's
amazing.
optical
This
as
is
well.
like a
It's got optical
About a
quality.
600-year-old skull from South
Well,
America.
that's considered the best one for
Yeah, maybe older.
Yeah, from the side.
Well, assuming it was made by conventional methods, it must have taken generations.
well, yes, to say you just basically abrasives. You just rub and
It's very nice when it's finished. My grandson will like it. Yeah.
The thing is, we don't have the concept of time. Somebody could have taken
Quartz.
years to make it.
Amethyst.
It's we're less patient as a generation, you know.
Instant gratification.
Yeah, but we even in the people who built the foundations and the cathedrals, you know, knew they wouldn't see the. Look at that with the lights on. That's amazing.
Oh, that's a nice.
With the lights off, that looks amazing.
It's quartz, probably amethyst.
On the solstice, your whole
So with a giant crystal ball.
That's a better one.
Yeah, and it doesn't
Maybe I'll say more about Amanda Scott's book later, but it's worth reading actually. I think it's called 2012 The Crystal Skulls by Amanda Scott. And it's about that they've got these 12 skulls and they have to put them into a certain place in the ancient monuments, and it unlocks some kind of key, spiritual key, which then allows everyone to ascend to a higher level and in a spiritual level.
People have bigger brains and just be more intelligent. It doesn't mean you are an alien. It
No.
just means you could have had a high level of intellect.
Exactly. We are,
Well, the Ancient Apocalypse series works on that principle, that there was a lot of people who were more intelligent than we were.
yeah, I can well believe it. Yeah. Incredible. That's an incredible thing.
I think they're waiting for the next one. I'm here anyway. I'll be here in the next break. So
I'm just going to pick this up so we'll see what happens. Wow. That's very heavy, it's very heavy. That's probably like about 5 or 6 pounds.
Well, if you want the biggest shot,
It's very smooth underneath. Sorry?
try picking that one up. That's a nightmare. That.
Yeah, this is the real one. You see, the anatomy's got a set of teeth. As you can see, like the different
It's got the
consistency.
Aztec art style on its eyes as well. Those ridges and the way it's put
That's
together.
Aztec, yeah.
It's the weight of that weighs its own.
The Aztecs were a culture from Mexico, which was in the it was ended with the Spanish conquest. Look, you see the different consistencies of the skull. There's the clear bit through the middle. You see my hands on the other side of it.
Depends if you want to do evidence of them being real. Or
This is
if
like a
they're
more
fake.
recent man. Oh, that's
The fake ones are fairly easy to spot.
Always have a grinding wheel series of parallel lines.
Yes, they do. Yeah, they
This is
do.
the fake one. It's still a beautiful object. It's still beautiful. It's like it's that rose quartz.
Slide tag out.
You are in a liminal place that places you between the living and the dead. So yes, it's a symbolic, absolutely.
With regard to Lombardy, you come from the northern Germany originally, yes?
Alright, just coming out for a bit of fresh air. It's Deborah Moretti there talking about witches in Italy, maskers as they're called, but there's lots of other names for them as well. Very interesting stuff. Again, I'll tell you more about this when I get back to the hotel. I just have a little, I want to see if I get the bus actually, because there's the Black Swan over there. The event doesn't finish till 9, and so I'll see if I can find see when the last bus goes. The last one was 23:13. 22. I might get the 10:15 one. So I can have a pint in the pub and then the 10:15 one, because otherwise I just won't have to. I don't want to get back too late because I want to be able to do a talk about record a little bit of a review of the various talks I've heard. That's my next objective, I think, before the end of the day. It's a nice little event. It's a nice little venue here. I haven't doubted having smoke and things like that before we go back in. But I'm already feeling. Inevitably, I get drowsy. You know, I feel like I'm dropping off to sleep, and that's why I always sit. I never sit on the front row because I don't want people to see me. I don't want the speaker to see me because they'll think they're boring me. They're not. They're not boring at all. They're very interesting. The speakers have been very, very high quality this year. So I'm sure they'll continue. Richard Freeman is up next. Now he's always interesting.
A place called Karuchi Sablak National Park, which is a huge national park, roughly the size of Wales, where there have been many sightings of the orang pendek, and we found many tracks.
Hey guys, well I'm here at the conference. Still, the afternoon session is over. We've had Richard Freeman talking about his search for the orang pendek. And I've been to the Black Swan again for another drink. So also, food's been a bit of a problem. I mean, I've basically just had some peanuts. I mean, it won't be too bad because I get a big breakfast in the morning anyway. I'm glad I ordered that actually. Gonna head back in there now because Nathan Jackson's going to do his talk, and then it's a big evening session. Goes on till 9 p.m. It's about 7:30 now. I should point out something. I've actually done something that is a little bit controversial. I think some of you viewers might not approve. We'll see. Anyway, I'll tell you more about that later.
For that soul that was going to be burned.
It's Matteo Borini, it's not Nathan Jackson.
And tonight, you will see what was happening back in those days.
Okay, it's coming out now. I got everything mixed up. It was actually a lot earlier than I thought it was. It's actually, and it wasn't Nathan. It was the speaker. It was actually something, not Roberto Pinotti, Roberto Manetti. He was a kind of like a stage performer anyway, magician, and he recreated the Spanish Inquisition. Yes, but I'll tell you what. I'll tell you more about it later. Quite something. Never seen that done before. When I say recreated it, there was no burnings at the stake or anything. It was just like it was all just a pageant. Hey guys, I've just come out of the venue. The venue's there behind me. You see, Last talk, Nathan Jackson, talking about bears. Very interesting indeed. Amusing as always. He's a witty young fella. I'm now going to get the bus back. I'd like to have a pint with the others tonight, but I've got quite a lot with me because I bought a few books and things today, and also I need to process and edit not edit, but I need to record material of all about today, basically doing reviews of the talks, which means basically I won't have time. If I have a point with these guys, I won't have time. That's the thing. But tomorrow it finishes. It has finished late tonight. It's actually 9 p.m. now. Tomorrow it finishes about 6 for the final day. So tomorrow evening will be a bit easier. But it's been a good day. I've enjoyed it, and everyone else is coming out now, I think. So they're going to head for the pub, and I'm going to try and get a bus back to the hotel. Oh, guys, guess what? I'm walking back. I'm walking back to the hotel. Yeah, I read the signs wrong. I read the timetables wrong. What is it about bloody timetables that somehow seems to elude me? Other people seem to manage with them all right. Why can't I? Yeah, it's the colour coding. The bus I was looking at was going to take me back. Actually goes to Manchester. I don't want to go to Manchester. I want to go to Warrington. But you can't go to Warrington on the bus on a Saturday after 5 to 7 in the evening. So I'm walking back. As you see, I've got my bag here with all the things I bought, my books and things I bought in this over my shoulder like this, so it doesn't wear down on me so much. One of the things about being a hospital porter, also carrying school bags when I was a kid, because I learned how to do that. So, and as it happens, I'm not far from the motorway now, so I'll soon be back at my home from home. Well, hello everyone. I'm back at the hotel. I'm back in my hotel room. It's about 20 to 11 at night. I'm glad, you see, if I hadn't come home early and I'd gone to the pub with those guys, it'd be like nearly midnight by now, probably. Especially because I couldn't get the bus. But anyway, now I'm back in my room. I can reflect on the first day of the Weird Weekend North 2023 conference and the various speakers and what they had to say and what I learned. What can I say? Generally, the quality was good, as always, and original. I learned a lot of new things. Bit of problem with the sound quality. As with Probe and Lapis and the YMCA, there's a general acoustics problem in that room. It's not really designed to have a speaker system and have large crowds in there. It's primarily like a sports hall or live concert venue, things like that. But anyway, still, it was pretty good. Rob Gandy was the first speaker. Again, there's some local interest as always with these things. He was talking about Satanism in Greater Manchester and a psychic contagion. Now, you may wonder what those words mean. I'll explain. It refers to a situation in the Greater Manchester area that covers like many generations. It's a problem of essentially black magic practice, and as a result, some kind of haunting by dark forces. Now, he begins by explaining how a woman he knows, who was born in 1986, has spent her life having strange feelings and strange experiences, such as seeing an owl in her bedroom. Now, as you know, if you remember my review of The Fourth Kind film, you'll know that the owl is actually a common symptom of alien abduction. Rather than being ghost related, it's more likely to be alien. And indeed, Rob mentioned this in the Q&A. But it turns out that the house she was living in has a very macabre reputation going back several decades. Her family, the family of that used to live there, were Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, I also know someone who's a Jehovah's Witness who lives in a flat which I've stayed at once, which I'm sure is filled with very malevolent energy indeed. She herself is a very damaged and frightened, broken young woman, and I don't think that's a coincidence. But anyway, the father of this woman who also lived in the house, she also saw strange ghosts in the house, like a young girl, ghost of a young girl. He saw her like in the bedroom, saw a ghost of a young girl in her bedroom, in his bedroom as a child in the 60s, which is interestingly what I saw in the 90s in my bedroom when I was sort of a young man. I saw the ghost of a young boy kneeling on the floor. I've done an entire video about this. The family have also seen balls of light and entoptic lights. That is, when you close your eyes, you sometimes see strange things on the inside of your eyelids. There's like entoptic visions, which is where some people they use that for divination. They'll sort of they'll look into the lights like that, and they'll see things go across their visual field, which you do when your eyes are shut like that. It happens to me. It turns out that there was a lady who lived there called Catherine who used to make dinner for a witch's coven. Now, this is the father's memory here we're talking about, not the girl, the woman that Rob knows. Something happened in 1965, and New Year's Day 1965, or New Year's Eve 64, there was a New Year's party, as is often the case, as people turned up for a party, and in costumes and things like that, which of course is normal practice at New Year in England. But then it turns out there was what sounds like there was a 5-day ritual which involved orgies. I suppose you could put it down to being in a swingers club or something, but it was darker than that. As I said, it had a ritualistic element to it. And this is indeed this Catherine woman was offered up as a sacrifice or to be used in these rituals. I don't want to talk about that in detail. Rob, you could see, was very reluctant to talk about this because Catherine was 5 and her sister was 8. The mother left her husband, a man called Harry, and Harry built a devil's altar. The mother was called Barbara. The mother was called Barbara and left and built a devil's altar in the cellar. Apparently, Harry was quite big in the 60s. He's quite big on the Greater Manchester folk music scene, and according to Rob, that was a major occult centre as well. He had a son called Paul, born 1974, he actually was a Jehovah's Witness, and they discovered a satanic temple in the cellar. The bed moved. Now, this is something that you see in the movies. I mean, The Exorcist is the best example. The Exorcist actually was a very frightening film, but it's also, The Exorcist is also very well researched. It's based on a real story. What it looks like is that these activities that went on in the 60s seems to have had some kind of lingering effect on the house. It's affected later residents. And Rob thinks that this is what he calls the psychic contagion, which has led to the creation of tulpas. Tulpas are physical manifestations of the mind. There's many different kinds of tulpa. I mean, a tulpa can literally be a physical manifestation everyone can see. On the other hand, it could also be essentially a very realistic hallucination, which you can see, which essentially is a projection of your own personality. Again, you see this in fiction. A good example is the Tyler Durden character from the film Fight Club, who doesn't actually exist, but he is the main character. I can't remember what the name of the main character. He manifests Tyler because Tyler is kind of his idealized self. Now this surprised me. There were a lot of Satanists in the 1980s Labour activists. Now this is very strange because I kind of got into trade unionism soon after that, like in the sort of late 80s, early 90s. Or just basically, I was only really hardcore for about a year, probably sort of late 80s, and they're almost universally atheo-skeptics, materialists, not actively skeptic in the same way that James Randi is. These things are just irrelevant to them. Skeptics, there's a difference between like the people. There are skeptics. Skeptics are aware of the things we talk about, the woo-woo stuff, but they're opposed to it. The kind of people I'm talking about, these Labour activists, it's just irrelevant to them. And it is to almost everyone. I mean, the exception being Jay Posadas. I've made an entire video about that. But according to Rob, there was an occult element to the left-wing activists in the 80s. God blimey. I mean, the 80s was quite like a turbulent era because Margaret Thatcher was in power. there was the militant tendency in Labour and things like that. Blimey, that surprised me. They created a guard dog tulpa. That's strange. Literally, a physical through thought processes and meditation. They created a physical image of a dog. This can be done, actually. Alexander David Neal, quite famously, she created a tulpa of a man she called her little monk, which is like a homunculus, a small man. And he was very persistent. He was actually very difficult. It took concentration just to get rid of him. And the subject of the Moors murderers came up, and I kind of wondering if there's a black magic element. Well, we know that's Hindley and Brady, they were very keen on Marquis de Sade and things like that, who was a French aristocrat who was very into hedonism and stuff. The term sadist comes from Marquis de Sade. But I mean, as someone mentioned this and made a good point, we mustn't let this get to the point where, I mean, this was when I was discussing this afterwards with one of the other delegates. We mustn't let this get to the point where I think where you sense it almost excuses people for their actions. If people are evil, well, it's because they're demonically possessed. But maybe they're just are as they are. They are evil for being who they are. I mean, Brady was evil. He'd committed some of the worst crimes that exist anywhere in the world on police record, and he was completely unapologetic for doing that. Rob then warns us not to get drawn into the dark arts, and well, I'll try to bear that in mind. There was a Q&A, and one guy spoke up. He's someone I know quite well who's into paganism and Wicca and things like that, and he gave a very long comment about how there's different kinds of Wicca and things like that. He comes from that area too. We're only just outside Greater Manchester here in Warrington. We're in Cheshire, which is just outside there. Interesting talk there by Rob Gandy. Now, Claire Davies is she's the chairwoman of ASAP, I believe, or she's somehow connected to ASAP, and she's an Irish lady. She's also chairwoman of the Ghost Club, and she describes herself as a tombstone tourist. She's fascinated by graves, mausoleums, and mysterious deaths, and she's taken a particular interest in in a certain location in Barbados. It's called the Chase Vaults, and it refers to the family crypt of someone called Thomas Chase and his family. Now, Thomas Chase was, I believe, he was a plantation owner or something in Barbados, and he was known to be a cruel man, a very cruel man. He was very cruel to his slaves, and they hated him. And in fact, I looked this up briefly, according to a lot of rumours, his slaves actually killed him. And there was never a criminal prosecution brought against them, but that seems to be the case, in which case, if he's really cruel, you can't blame them. But he also apparently killed his 8-year-old daughter. He was beating her, and he was like spanking her for doing something, for being naughty, as Stephen Molyneux said, that's physical abuse. And he got a bit carried away and ended up, she died under his violent hand. And then the thing is, strange things has happened. I think he died in 1808, just the year after his daughter was 1807, and every so often they'd go back and they put more bodies into the cemetery, into this vault, which is like what's the word? It's like a what do you call it? We have like a large structure when there's lots of tomb with lots of different coffins in from a family, family crypt, I suppose you call it. Or crypt is underneath the church, like the basement of the church, like that weird place we went to in Gateshead where the alien was. But whatever it is, people used to go down there and find the coffins had moved around. They've been moved, which is really weird because there's a big padlock on the door. No one's got in there. Things like that. She mentions something that I've noted. She asked why cemeteries are haunted, and Claire mentioned something that I have. They have to do with emotional excess. Places like hospitals, battlefields, they're also haunted. Chernobyl, the disaster site in Ukraine. But Claire says she finds graveyards full of peace and tranquility. And indeed, I suppose they're meant to be that way. They're well kept. They're like, you have like gardens around them with flowers and there's trees, and they're often well kept. They're resting places of the dead. And I suppose they're meant to be like that. She mentions several cemeteries that I've been to. I mean, I have an interest in cemeteries, not like she does, but I do find them interesting places. There was the Highgate Cemetery I've been to, and I've wrote an entire article about my trip to Highgate Cemetery. I went to the east side. The most interesting part is the west side, but you need to make an appointment to go there. You can't just turn up. So I'll do at some point. There's also a cemetery in Inverness, which I went to in 2005 when I went to the Findhorn community. I've mentioned I spent a week at the Findhorn community. Yeah, I actually I wrote an article about that. I've also but when I was staying in Inverness, I actually went to I went to this cemetery, and it's a strange place. There's this hill, which is, I told Brian Allen about this, and he knew about it. And Malcolm Robinson, I think I mentioned this too. There's a hill in this cemetery, and it's said to be a fairy hill. You go up these little staircases, it's a very steep hill in this cemetery. You go to the top of this, there's more graves on top of the hill. It's a strange thing. He also mentions St John's Bolton, another cemetery. There's someone called Captain Slash that was there. He's a famous serial killer in the 19th century. He's buried there. Apparently there's if you go in there, there's a young woman, apparently one of his victims, was buried there, and she appears as a ghost, and she'll sit next to you. You sit on a bench in that cemetery, she'll sit next to you, and she'll ask you to kiss her. Apparently she's quite appealing to look at, and, you know, some guys can't resist that sort of thing. If you do that, she says, you'll be joining me within a month. And then she says, oh, there's a ghost there who's very English, because whenever you do EVP in this cemetery, you always hear the word sorry. She says there's a very famous cemetery in Argentina where there's a 3-level deep tomb, which includes Eva Perón, who's the wife of President Perón. They were leaders of Argentina. They were deposed in a coup, as in the musical Evita talks about. There was a couple who hated each other. They lived in Buenos Aires their whole lives. They hated each other, though, but they wouldn't get divorced. They didn't speak to each other for 25 years. And as soon as they didn't divorce, their last request was to be buried in the same grave, but to be placed back to back to each other. So instead of laying on their back like most corpses do in a coffin, they were placed on their side, facing away from each other. Why don't they just, for God's sake, you just wonder why people do that. Why not just bloody move out? Find someone else. Oh, there's this horrible story about a woman called Rufina. Now, when they dug her up, because they for some reason they do this in some countries, they found that her hands were like that, her nails were embedded in the roof of the coffin. It looks like she was not really dead. She was unconscious and been misdiagnosed as dead, and she woken up in the coffin. God, oh my God, what a horrible nightmare. I mean, there's not a lot you could do when she's 6 feet underground. I mean, she'd have died very quickly. There's no air to breathe, but oh God, how horrible. Apparently, she's now a ghost. There's a caretaker in that cemetery committed suicide, and he wanders that cemetery in Argentina. His keys rattling. And there's a Romanian cemetery which is full of bright colours. Greyfriars in Edinburgh. I know about Greyfriars Cemetery in Edinburgh. It's famous for the dog, Bobby, the little dog who he's like this little border terrier, and he was so loyal to his master. When his owner died, he sat by the grave and he wouldn't leave. He just spent the rest of his life. He lived for another like 9 or 10 years, but he spent the whole time by the graveside. The local vicar fed him and things like that, and cleared up his poo and stuff. But he just wouldn't leave his master's side. How sweet! How sweet is that? Dogs are like that, you see. The dogs. Let's face it, dogs are nicer than most people, aren't they? They really are. Edinburgh, and Claire didn't mention this, but I've talked about this when I talked in my EVP video. Edinburgh is the site of there was a massive witch panic which led to an absolutely genocidal campaign of burnings. I think at one point they said like a third of the city was burned at the stake. in a space of just a few years, in a witch panic sometime in the 12th century, I believe. And Edinburgh's very haunted. And I mentioned the vaults under Edinburgh, these catacombs, which of course I did that video about, because the BBC apparently picked up EVP, or they claim to have. There's many famous cemeteries in Paris, including one called Père Lachaise, where there's a ghost photo in there. Oh, there's the Jewish cemetery in Prague, which is very famous. Now, there's several cemeteries. There's actually another major famous cemetery in Prague, in which I set us. If you read Roswell Rising, I set one of the scenes in my novel in that cemetery. Yeah. I do recommend, actually, there's a book called Prague Cemetery by Umberto Eco. It's a novel. In fact, reading it kind of inspired me to write Roswell Rising in a way. It's basically it's a kind of a comedy, I suppose, but it's about, you may be familiar with The Name of the Rose, Foucault's Pendulum. These are other books that Eco has written. He's an Italian author, and he writes about 19th century conspiracy theories. They're very interesting books. I know Foucault's Pendulum is about a modern day. Well, it's kind of taking the mickey out of us, I suppose. Foucault's Pendulum. It's set in the modern day, and it's more kind of like about how people let their imagination. Conspiracy theorists can let their imaginations just get carried away. But in Cuba, there's a famous cemetery in Cuba, and in just at the beginning of the 20th century, there was a sad case where a mother died in childbirth, and the baby died like soon afterwards, and they placed them in the coffin, as was tradition in Cuba in those days. They placed the baby in the coffin between the mother's feet at the end of the coffin, the dead baby. Anyway, later when they exhumed the body, they found that the baby had moved from her legs to her arms, and they dug her up, and they were just bones by there, but the skeleton of the mother was holding the skeleton of the baby in her arms, which is, yeah, sweet. She mentions HollywoodForever.com, which is where you can find, if you want to know where a famous actor or actress is buried, go to HollywoodForever.com. Mark Ollie, I showed you him earlier. We know him from Blackpool. He had his crystal skull with him, and I filmed it, as you saw. But he did a really, really good talk about skulls, crystal skulls and other skulls. He mentioned the Star Child skull, which he brought that up briefly. I asked him about it. He said he's familiar with Andrew Johnson and his work on that. And he talked about the different kinds of human skulls, the oldest version of Homo sapiens, which is our own species. In large skulls, he mentioned large skulls, giants, and Homo floresiensis, which is an interesting little creature. Richard Freeman talks about him too. I'll talk about him later. But what Richard said later, a little small creature on Flores. Giants. Giants, I believe, exist. Certainly, there's absolutely no doubt they did exist. Certainly within the last few thousand years. There's bodies been found in Iraq of 10-foot tall men. And there's not just one of them, a whole load of them. So he's not just like a freak. They're all like that in these graves in Iraq. Long skull people. Now he mentions the Baraka skulls, and of course this is where we come onto the long skulled people, which Maria Wheatley talks about, which is absolutely fascinating. And quartz. Then he kind of goes on to quartz, because of course these crystal skulls are made of quartz. Now, there's many of these skulls. Now, most of them are modern forgeries, or even they're not forgeries. Some of them are just. Some of them are not. You can't say it's forgery unless there's some deceit involved. But there were many made in the modern world. Some there are facsimiles of the Mitchell Hedges skull, for example, made on modern machines. But quartz is an interesting material. It's very abundant in the Earth's crust, and maybe even deeper. It may come from the mantle, even the Earth's core. Now, I don't have time to go into really enormous detail about this because it would require its own video. But there are genuine crystal skulls that come primarily from the Americas, particularly from Mexico, South America, Central America, that area. Aztec, Inca, Maya, they used them in rituals. The Mitchell Hedges skull was found in Belize, which is in Central America, just south of Mexico. This was in 1920. A guy called Mitchell Hedges took his daughter actually found it in the ruins of an Aztec monument and brought it back, and it's an amazing piece of work. It's actually got a detachable jaw. It's the only one of its kind that has a detachable jaw, made from the purest piece of quartz in existence. Quartz is very difficult to work. I mean, it's to create quartz sculptures, especially if you're using hand tools, would be enormously difficult. It would take a hell of a long time. It's actually there's an argument that it couldn't be done in a single generation. It would probably take several generations of people working on it continuously, going with sandpaper or something. And on Mark, you see, has that skull with him. The skull you saw is an original Aztec or Mayan skull. It's at least 400 years old, maybe. He's 600 years old, maybe older. And then he mentions fiction. Now he mentions Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. Now I know a lot of people take the piss out of this one. The Indiana Jones fans, it's generally unpopular with them. And people who like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom. I love those films too. I think they're very good. But I actually really did like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Bear in mind, I haven't seen The Last Crusade. I've got to watch that at some point. I've never seen that. But Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is very good indeed. It combines the Crystal Skull, obviously, with the Roswell alien thing in a quite skilled way. But it mentions other things such as magnetic properties of quartz, piezoelectric. Piezoelectric means if you rub it, or press it, or subject it to some kind of mechanical force, it gives off an electromagnetic field. So not a lot of people know this, but there's actually a novel. It's by, let me just get this right. I was going to look this up, but there's a writer called Manda Scott, who I think is very good. Manda Scott wrote I showed you them in my book collection. Sorry, I'm on 3G now. Here we go. Manda Scott. There we go, Manda Scott. She's Scottish. She's a Scottish veterinarian and author, novelist, and blogger. Yeah, she's and a broadcaster. Yes, she's written a book called she writes crime fiction, but she also writes historical fiction, and she wrote the Boudica series. I mean, I go on about having Boudica moments. Reading these books is a massive Boudica moment. There are 4 of them, and it's really good, and I love it. Yeah, it's and it's called The Crystal Skull, and it's about it. And funny enough, it kind of Amanda Scott, the novel actually predates the film, and I'm kind of wondering if if the people who made the film maybe see, it's not an adaptation; it's different stories. I think they plagiarized her a bit because there's a plot element in the Indiana Jones film which is very similar to that in The Crystal Skull. This idea of getting the 12 skulls together, and then you put them together and something magical happens. That happens in The Crystal Skull, which is Amanda Scott's book. She's called MC Scott now, so I don't know why they changed her name. That's just not her pen name. But yeah, that's worth reading, I'd say. And of course, the Boudica series is very worth reading. It really is. It's a brilliant, long, detailed sort of fictionalization of the Boudica story. Right, then next we had Deborah Moretti, another Scottish woman, talking about ancient witches of northern Italy, especially the Piedmont region, which is interesting because that's where St. Theo comes from, doesn't he? St. Theobald of Ruggiero, born 1170 in Piedmont, Italy. And she talks about something called a masca. Now, this is a witch. It's a combination of masca, M-A-S-C-A, is a combination of a witch and a ghost. And it dates back at least 600 years, and there's very often a lineage. It's very similar. What they had was very similar to the cunning folk of Northern Europe, because the idea of witches, you know, survived long into the Christian era in different forms. So, for example, they'd have cunning folk in villages because they couldn't call them witches because then they get burned at the stake. But the cunning witches comes from Wicca. Wicca is Old English, just means a wise woman in Old English. But a lot of communities would have someone like that in their community, someone on the periphery, someone who's not accepted, someone who's quite shy and introverted and wouldn't really join in with the community, but nevertheless was tolerated and respected and would be a source of wisdom, usually somebody elderly and female. And that kind of is what a masca is. And she goes into the etymology of it. She thinks it might go back to Old Italic, even Indo-European, because it can be found. There's equivalents in the Germanic languages, and she also talks about a lamia. Now, a lamia is quite scary because a lamia is rather like a succubus. It sexually abuses its victims. It's a feminine demonic form. I mean, there's a Romanian myth as well similar to that. I can't remember what they're called. I interviewed a guy called Dan Farkas, he's a Romanian ufologist, and he told me about it. But these beings are actually they actually serve as protectors and communicators with the spirit world. It's pretty good. Anyway, then we come on to good old Richard Freeman, now of the Centre for Fortean Zoology. He went back to Indonesia to try and find the orang pendek. The orang pendek is a small version of Bigfoot. It's a upright hominid, an upright hominid or primate of some kind, similar to Bigfoot but much smaller. It's estimated to be 3 to 4 feet tall, and he thinks it's very similar to the Homo florensis. The florensis is this creature that lived in Flores. And he says it's actually not a hominid in the sense it has a different lineage. So it's not part of our family tree as a species, because we come from, there was what we call Homo erectus, which is a creature that lived several million years ago, which turned into Neanderthal man and Homo sapiens. We didn't develop from Neanderthals. We both sprang from the same lineage. But the Homo floriensis, and Richard believes the orang pendek comes from a different lineage. It's from what he calls the Denisovans, which is a different ancestor, and he believes it's still alive. He says he's found a handprint of it, he's found a footprint. Now these are very clearly land-dwelling creatures, so their hands are similar to ours. They have the hands and the feet are similar to ours, but they're much smaller in size. But they are like ours, which indicates they are not like orangutans. Orangutans they're apes. They're similar to from the family of chimps, gorillas, and things like that. They're our close relatives, and we're within this subgroup as well. But the orang pendek is different, but it is upright. And he's going to go back there soon. He's been like 6 or 7 times to Sumatra, this island where this thing lives. And Sumatra, he said he got so close to it last time. He says he's very close to proving that the orang pendek exists. Then we had someone called Matteo. What's his name? What's his bloody name? Another bloody Scotsman called who is it? The Great Borini. Matteo Borini. See, from Glasgow. Yeah, and he did a kind of magic show. It was really good. It was a part magic show and part like a recreation of the Spanish Inquisition. Now, I should say it was not a literal recreation, because otherwise we'd be arrested. The organisers and he would be arrested for murder. But he did like he went through the rituals, the ordeals and things like that, and the trials with various people from the audience. He called them up onto the stage, and they sort of walked up there looking really scary. I was sitting near the back, and I was sort of doing this. Don't come to me! Don't come to me! The final speaker, Nathan Jackson, brilliant young chap. He's only like he's only about 18 or something, but he's really, really with it, and he's a really likable chap as well. And he talked about mysterious bears. His talk was called Bear Necessities. such as McFarlane's bear. Now, this is a alleged creature that was found, an ursid, in other words, someone from the bear family, which appears to be a completely different species. But the theory at the moment, I was sort of Googling this as I went along just to get all the details, is that it's actually possibly a hybrid of a grizzly bear and a polar bear. Apparently, they do get together sometimes and produce hybrid babies, and they are fertile with each other. And there's other things as well. There's the Iroquois bear. That is in Siberia, and there's the giant short-faced bear, which is called what's it called? Sorry, guys. I want to get these names right because he told us what these names were. They got great names. It's gonna, there's like they have some real. Oh, here we are. Arctodus. Arctodus is like, now Arctodus is a very scary thing, because Arctodus or Arctodus, it's an extinct genus of short-faced bear that inhabited North America during the Pleistocene. That is, it died out about 12,000 years ago. It's supposedly extinct. Maybe exists still. It may be still alive in certain places, because people have described it. And this is one scary bear, man, because it's 11 feet tall when it's on its hind legs, which makes it far bigger than any. Like the polar bear, I think, is the biggest known extant bear. This is far bigger. I mean, you wouldn't want to meet this one in a dark alley. There's others. There's lots of strange bears in South America as well, and the Himalayas. Now, there's a bear in the Himalayas called the Ruk Balu. It's like a mini bear. It's only about 2 feet tall, and it's said to be arboreal, so it lives in trees. So it's like a tree climber. I don't know if there's any other bears that regularly climb trees, because people say, well, pandas. Well, pandas are not bears. They're from a different family. They look like bears. Sort of koalas, but koalas are marsupials. They're from a completely different family. The Ruk Balu could be similar. We know like a panda, but it's a vegetarian apparently. And now some skeptics will claim that yetis, the sightings of the yetis, are just bears, and this came up in the Q&A. But sometimes you get confusion with Bigfoot, but Nathan was absolutely consistent on this, and I've always said this. There's a very distinct difference. I mean, there are very clear sightings of Bigfoot. It is definitely some kind of primate, no doubt about it. You could tell very clearly the difference between a bear and, even when they're up on hind legs, between a bear and a primate. There's something called the golden moon bear, and it has a lion-like mane. It's gold. It's like a yellowish fur, so it's called golden. That's dark lion-like mane. There's something called the Atlas bear in Africa, up in northern Africa, which is supposedly extinct, but it could be still alive. Someone thought that the Nantinak might be a bear, and the Nantinak is a very aggressive creature that lived still, to what we know, lives in Alaska. Now, there's a kind of like low budget documentary about it, which I quite like. But the Nantinak is actually a Bigfoot. It's the sightings of it indicate it's physically the same as Patty, the North American Bigfoot. But it's evolved. It seems to be a lot more aggressive, and it could be that because a lot of the Amerindian legends of Sasquatch could describe it as a much more assertive and aggressive creature than it is today. And it's possible that the Nantinak has not evolved that new behaviour yet, because they abandoned an entire town in Alaska in the 1940s because of the Nantinak. So that's day one out the way. I'm gonna go to bed and look forward to. I didn't really get a proper meal this evening. I could have got myself a takeaway, but I didn't have the. I could have. It's my own fault. I could have gone and done it, but I couldn't. I just couldn't be bothered. So I've eaten some peanuts. That's my dinner. But who cares? Big breakfast tomorrow. That's one thing about staying at the Premier Inn. So good night, all.
20th of February, 1954, Palm Springs, California. President Dwight D. Eisenhower was in town, but his visit was both unscheduled and unexpected.
On the evening of February 20th, 1954, President Eisenhower is vacationing at Palm Springs. The president just gets back from a quail hunting trip for 5 days, and then he takes off for Palm Springs for no reason. Nobody knew he was going there.
What for, I wonder?
At around 10 p.m., President Eisenhower disappeared.
The president did disappear for a period of 12 hours.
It's like the 11th green.
One reporter was actually
Hey, Grant Cameron.
story out that the president had died of a heart attack. The following day, Eisenhower shows up 100 miles away in Los Angeles at a church service, and he claims he had to undergo emergency dental surgery for a chipped tooth.
A number of reports surfaced indicating that the president was actually at Muroc Airfield, also known as Edwards Air Force Base, only a 2.5-hour drive from Palm Springs.
There are documents that show Muroc Airfield, which is now known as Edwards Air Force Base, was shut down for 3 days to all incoming air traffic and all non-essential personnel from February 19, 1954 to February 21st. Coincidentally, this is the exact same time as President Eisenhower's disappearance.
But why would Eisenhower be visiting Muroc?
Rumors immediately came out, within like a week or two, that Eisenhower had had a meeting with aliens.
Ooh.
This is actually leaked out on the radio show of a man named Frank Edwards. Millions of people listened to him, and he was really into flying saucers and UFOs.
UFO files suggest that there are eyewitnesses to this meeting.
We have numerous eyewitness accounts in our files of President Eisenhower striking a secret deal with these extraterrestrials.
Oh my God.
There are claims that there was an agreement made, again, is it true or not, that they would provide America with certain types of technologies in exchange to have a kind of a permanent presence, a permanent base.
After the alleged first meeting, Eisenhower passed a policy of total secrecy concerning UFOs and extraterrestrials.
Well, guys, yeah, good morning. How are you all? Yeah, it's about 6 now, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I've had a bit of insomnia. I get it every couple of weeks, not as much often as I used to, and I'm now just sort of watching UFO Week on Blaze, which is perfect. I mean, it's almost like they knew I'd be here and they knew I couldn't sleep, so they put these programs on specially for me. Well, not to worry. I mean, I slept till about 5, and it's not a bad night's sleep. I've now got I'm going to get up in about an hour and a half and have breakfast. But and then it's day 2 of this conference. But I'll just show you, that's my hotel room at night, everyone. Yeah. Pretty good stuff. I'm just going to carry on watching this particular. I'm going to press mute there and it will come back on.
The letter receives a high level response.
There we go.
This letter finds its way to J. Edgar Hoover.
That's Nick Redfern.
Right away. Quote, I'm instructing a special agent of our Oklahoma City office to contact you concerning the matter you mentioned. J. Edgar Hoover was already paranoid that the military is not sharing the truth.
Yeah, it's good stuff, isn't it? Good morning. I've just passed over the junction and I'm walking on this increasingly familiar route to the venue. About an hour's walk, should get there just after the doors are open. It's a chilly, grey morning today. It's not as nice as yesterday. It's just quite warm and crisp and sunny. I didn't actually get back to sleep after I woke up. I watched a little bit of that UFO program, then I read the rest of the present. Yeah, I finished it.
It's interesting. I don't know how many of you have read it. I know a lot of you do watch Stefan Molyneux, and you know his website freedomain.org, and how he's actually working on a audio book of this. I think he's got the first few chapters up. There are like 26 or 27 chapters in all. And I finished reading it. I've read the whole thing. Read it all. It's all on a single page on his website. I read it without Wi-Fi, and yeah, it's quite something. It's the only other novel of his I've read is Almost, and this one's better, I would say, but more depressing. It is kind of like an apocalyptic novel, but I think it's maybe look at apocalyptic themes differently. I'll write a full review on her Panmo Voice or something, but it sort of starts off as one thing and it changes into another, a bit like The World's End. That's a funny, that comedy with Simon Pegg and Nick Ross. It's interesting. It starts off like with among this woman who's a journalist. She's writing about the anti-feminist men's rights movement, and then she's got like a sister and nephew, and there's a whole section about how the little boy, he's like a 3-year-old boy, and he's going crazy because he's been in daycare. One of Steph's pet peeves is daycare. And there's other characters. The characters, like just like with his other books, and indeed like Ayn Rand, who he's very influenced by. Most of his characters are kind of concepts rather than characters. They tend to be quite shallow expressions of good or evil. Maybe this is why, I don't know how it's like, but when I'm reading a book, I adapt it into a movie in my mind. I can see the characters, I can imagine the scenarios, and the description of Oliver, he's the leader of the Manosphere organisation he's in. He also runs the post-apocalyptic sort of Gulch type community where there's like farms and freedom and things like that, when the rest of the world is going into state-induced catastrophe. He's described as being, see, I imagined him as this sort of like short chubby bloke. If you read the book, you may wonder why that is, because Oliver is obviously not like that. His physical description is of some kind of Galtian supermensch. But I never imagined him. I don't imagine him like that. Rachel is the only real character with any depth. She transforms very radically after the collapse. The collapse happens very suddenly. There's no real warning. It's kind of like maybe that's how it would come upon us if it happened. But of course she very quickly changes her position, and she often makes ironic jokes with herself about her own past. And I mean, she wouldn't be, if that happened, she wouldn't be the only one. Any say feminists or wokeists with any kind of any introspective ability at all, the irony would not be lost on them that their cherished cultic worldview would be gone within about 30 seconds. All these feminists who go on about evil white men would literally be turning as quickly as they could to any evil white male, so-called, who would protect them. She'd be desperately begging him to protect them. Yeah, definitely, feminism would not be, is a product of this little kind of Barnard cell we have. What's the word? Is it a Barnard cell? A kind of like a little whirlpool of stability kept up by these energies of civilization, which are very fragile indeed, have been sabotaged by the Illuminati, although that's my own position. Steph doesn't believe in the Illuminati. But one point he makes is that a collapse of civilization, let's make me see that in different ways, would be a horrible thing, but it would have a sugar coating, because it would, in one way, don't take this the wrong way, I don't want it to happen. I know how much suffering as a result, but it would be a liberation. We'd suddenly find we had an awful lot to be scared about, but we have nothing to be worried about. If we were fighting for food and running from dogs and climbing into the ceilings of petrol station forecourts to escape hungry dogs, you know, typing out the latest piece of manufactured outrage against Simon Parkes really wouldn't be in the forefront of our minds, would it? Yeah, it would put everything into perspective, you see, and it could be the start of something wonderful as well. I mean, you see, should there be some kind of like zombie apocalypse type scenario with or without the zombies, it could be one of two things. It could literally be the end of Illuminati rule and the beginning of the turbulent transitional period, which may well start with some kind of massive societal collapse. Or it could be an engineer, it could be one of three things, sorry. It could be that, it could be something, essentially the birth pangs of the post-Illuminati world. On the other hand, it could be a deliberate collapse carried out by the Illuminati to bring in the New World Order. Or it could be that, it could be that the Illuminati have kind of lost control and the New World Order is over, but they're either deliberately crashing civilization, deliberately, you know, in that old adage, you know, if we cannot have the world, then neither shall you, kind of thing. A Goethe, Demerung, dog in the manger club situation, which I wouldn't put it past them. I sometimes think that's what the CERN is for. Or they literally have simply let things collapse, and the problem is we are so indebted to them, we're so addicted to them, that we can never rehabilitate ourselves. I think that's unlikely, and that would be like a real, that would be sad if that was the case. And, what's interesting is that during this societal collapse, the government, of course, then say, okay, we're going to take charge of the situation and protect you. And it was like it's their fault that even happened. And this always happens. It's happened before on a smaller scale. Like they say to the people in the book, they say, stay in your homes, don't go anywhere, we'll bring you food. And of course, food never turns up. And they put roadblocks outside the city so people can't get out. Things like that. That not only would happen, it did happen on a small scale. Say, for example, following Hurricane Andrew. Following Hurricane Andrew, the FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, went in and took control of the disaster area in Florida. And they literally were doing that. They were trapping people in cities. They had no food, no clean drinking water. And people were trying to get out. And FEMA said, we can't have these people wandering the country looking for food and water. They said, stay in your homes, we'll bring you food and water. Which they never did. As Rachel says in the book, you know, you're guarding a graveyard. Yeah, that's probably what would happen, unfortunately. Yeah, but it's an interesting book. You could say book, it's just like a long Word document or a text document on freedomain.com. You can just find it on Steph's website. He's given this away for free. He's got another book called The Future, which you have to pay for, which I might get. Now you can subscribe to him. If you could become a subscriber, it's just to read it now. I'm thinking of waiting until it's in paperback, because he said he was going to work on a paperback edition of it. I think I might just get a paperback when it's ready. So the future is like, what is a sort of science fiction future scenario after the fall, the collapse, you know. That kind of thing. This first act of the book is full of like wokist excesses and things like that, about that and how people who challenge the wokies get persecuted. Yeah. It is literally a relief when the whole system just comes crashing down and everyone has to like pull worms out of the ground to feed themselves. It's literally a relief. Along this road here.
Day 2 of the conference is starting. Problem is, the present is so bloody absorbing. It's hard to get out of my head, and how do I get my head into a different space now to deal with this? I think, you know, things can never carry on as they are, and there's no way out of this without, there's no way to cross this Rubicon without terrible suffering. There's no way. All we can hope for is that suffering is the first scenario I told you about. It's just like you get disclosure, you get post-Illuminati, the post-Illuminati books. Of course, if you read the Roswell trilogy, you know that's how I depict it. The beginning of Roswell Revealed is very similar to Steph's post-apocalypse. It reminds me also another good book, Memoirs of a Survivor by Doris Lessing. That's a good book about how people cope with kind of collapse of civilization, break down law and order, that kind of thing. I like this. Is probably my favourite bit of the walk here. These fields are nice, and the wood trees in the back. Right. Here you go. See you later. Alright guys, I'm nearly at the venue now. And there's the pub, the Black Swan. It's actually a very nice pub indeed. It's just really turned down a lot of business this weekend, and they could have actually made a lot of money off the conference, which they didn't. Well, it's up to them. But I've eaten a very big breakfast, an extra big breakfast this morning, because I actually had well, not only, you know, it's not just lunch I have to worry about, it's the evening meal, because if they're not serving food, my options are cut down, and you know, getting here to takeaway is such a bloody bother. I mean, it's nice. I mean, I could do it if I make the effort. I could do it, but you know, it's just it was my dad's favourite catchphrase. Morning, Glenn. How you doing? It's the organiser there, Glenn. It's a nice awful hassle, he says. So I had an extra big. I had a double helping of full English, so I'm a bit stuffed. Here is the venue. There's a few of my friends there. And we're heading in a minute. I won't be buying anything today. I mean, I bought so much yesterday. I'm not going to. I mean, not because I'm run out of money, but because it's not because I've run out of money. It's because I bought so much I won't be able to carry it on the coach. I've got almost as much to take home as this gentleman has got on his trolley. The difference is I don't have a trolley. So in we go they just opened the door, so in we go. Hello everyone. Now, yesterday I told you about Claire Davey, who did an interesting talk about cemeteries and things. And here is Claire. Hello Claire, how are you doing?
Hello, hi.
This is Hapanwo TV, which is my YouTube channel, and my viewers will be interested to hear, what was your talk about?
My talk was about tombstones and graveyards all over the world and what attracts us to them. I love gravestones, graveyards, that's where I walk all the time. Throughout the world we've got some amazing ones in Argentina, in the Caribbean, in America, and they all have fantastic stories attached to them. Not necessarily haunting or anything like that, but things that are just beautiful. And I think if you remember, I told you the one about Cuba,
yes,
where the baby,
that was very moving. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and a baby was buried between its mum's feet, and then when the coffin was opened, it was in its mum's arms. So it always sort of gives me a shiver. And that is, yes, yeah, that's very sweet, and it's like you just wonder kind of why these sort of things happen, you know, you wonder why these sort of things happen. I mean, I'm also interested in graveyards. I find them quite amazing places, and I suppose it's we have. I suppose because we're very intelligent, we have this awareness of the mortality, because we can see the future, and we maybe. I think some species, elephants apparently can do that as well. Elephants have sort of a death awareness. It's led to such a cultural phenomenon, and also like genuine, unexplained things like the moving coffins was incredible. I mean, I didn't know about that thing in Barbados, but what do you think actually caused that? Because you know, the Chase Fault in Barbados has been researched a lot. I'm very lucky to have been there. The coffins were thrown around, and each time they were reinterred in the tombs, they were broken up and thrown to the other end of the tomb. I don't know what caused it. They have looked for every possible man-made contrivance. It could have been the weather, it could have been earthquakes, it could have been flooding, but it didn't affect anywhere else in the cemetery.
That's strange, isn't it? Yeah. I've been to Highgate Cemetery. I only went on the east side, but I'd like to. You've got to book an appointment to go to the west side, but I think that's the most interesting part. And that's where I want to go. Yes, but all the celebrities are buried on the east side. You know, you mentioned Jonathan Ross. Karl Marx is the most famous person, but there's others.
There's like Jeremy Beadle and people like that. Obviously George Michael.
Yeah. Jeremy Beadle has a bookshelf on his grave. It's because he loves reading. I was just wondering, like, because you mentioned something I didn't know. Is that maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe in Cuba they do this sort of thing. The people sometimes do exhume bodies and open up the coffins again. Now, that's something I don't think we do in this country.
No, over here you would have to have a lot of paperwork, and you'd have to have a very good reason to have a body exhumed for obvious reasons.
Criminal investigations and things, you know.
I mean, even on the day of burial, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but once they put the coffin down into the grave, even if you wanted to bring it straight back up, as soon as you put it down, you couldn't. You would have to have all the paperwork, you'd have to go through everything. In other countries, that's not as much of an issue. I don't think it's anything to do with disrespect or anything, but they are very much... they're okay with death and decomposition and everything like that, and they like checking on their family members. There are places around the world that dig up their family members regularly, and they redress them, and they sort of have them out of the coffin for about 2 or 3 days before they reinter them.
I didn't know that. It's true, yeah. I mean, I actually found out a bit about that, and I was really surprised. But it seems rather macabre, maybe, to our sort of Western European sensibilities, but they do. I mean, in some places like New Guinea, I think they actually bury them. They have they keep the heads in this special room on shelves, like we keep books. And they actually, and all their relatives, they say, granddad, uncle, aunt, and it seems weird, doesn't it? But
it does.
I suppose this is the way they are.
But no, it's a nice natural way to deal with death, and I think it maybe takes the fear away a little bit.
Yeah. The right to sepulchre issue, it can actually be quite frustrating if you're investigating paranormal phenomena and things like that, because there's actually a graveyard in Texas, USA, there's allegedly an alien buried from a spaceship. The Aurora, you've heard of the Aurora incident? And it wasn't investigated until 1975, and by then it was too late because this happened in the late 19th century. But people like Jim Mars, they said we need to dig this up. Can we dig it up? And they said no, you can't. It's a grave.
It's still a grave. It doesn't matter if it's or not. It's still a grave.
The person is protected by rights, even if the beneficiary is a being from another planet. And so. Well, while they were going through this paperwork, they went to the Texas Supreme Court and things like this to try and get this sorted out. While this was going on, one night someone went in there, probably the FBI or someone like that, or the CIA, and then when they came back the next day, someone had lifted the turf up and been digging. They put the turf back and the gravestone's gone. And looks like because they were worried that someone would dig it up and find the alien. So that sort of thing does happen.
Such a pity. There should be equal reverence for other beings.
I know, that's true. I suppose that's fair enough. I understand that you can't just say, well, we want to dig it up. You can't just dig it up. You've got to go through the process. I understand that. Of course, an opportunity was lost there as a result. But never mind. We'll get another one, I'm sure. But thanks very much. It's very interesting stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hope you enjoy the rest of the conference, Claire.
You too. Thank you.
That's Claire Davies. Do you have a website or anything people can look you up?
No, you can look me up on Twitter as TipsyWitch78 or just under my normal name, Claire Davies. Tipsy Witch. Or Claire Davy on Facebook.
That's a good name, isn't it? Right, sure. Thank you very much. Cheers. Hey guys, I've got a little bit of an update for you. A couple of updates actually. Now, the guy making the documentary I told you about, this guy making this new avant-garde documentary, apparently he's not here, so I'm just going to catch up with him on social media. My friend's going to put me in touch with him and introduce me to him. We'll have a word on social media. Second update, I've just heard a rumour that may or may not be true, that there was a ghost sighting in the pub last night. It was in the accommodation section upstairs where there are some rooms. I almost got the chance to stay there myself and didn't. I didn't take that opportunity and now regretting it. But, you never know when these things happen. There could have been one at the Premier Inn and then I'd have regretted that. But I'll try and find out more later, find out who it is. And if possible, I'll get you some more information on it and find out what kind of evidence there is, how credible it is, that kind of thing. So, we'll be starting soon, I think.
Wrap my cigarettes off and scribble with a biro or whatever pen I had, a little shape, like a figure or a face. Then I'd borrow my phone, I'd lift my finger and stick it to my finger so the transparency was just over the edge of my finger. And I'd then say a few minutes later, can I borrow your phone a moment? Can you set it up? I'm just going to take a photo of you to see if we get a spirit form. I I would slip my finger with a bit of cigarette packet just over the camera.
Hey guys, I'm here with Dan, and this is what happened?
John. My name's John.
John, sorry, apologies. His name's
Well, I'll start in the evening because we've been out and done all the bits and bobs, as you know, we were all together, weren't we?
Yeah.
Doing bits and bobs. And we went to the pub with Graham, different pub. I had a beer down there, I had a nat. So we got back to the Blacks one about 10 past 11, I think it was. Give or take. So we didn't bother going to talk to anybody else outside, we just went straight to bed. So everything was fine. So about 10 past 4, give or take, in the morning, I woke up thinking that my foot was snagged or caught. My left foot was in bed. But there was resistance against my foot as if it was snagged. I thought my wife had kicked me, and that's why I'd woken up, and I got my foot caught somehow. So I pulled it and it gave way, but it felt like my foot was actually not being held or snagged. I didn't think anything else of it. But by then I'm actually quite a bit more awake. And then my wife described me, and she's snoring. I shouldn't say this because she wouldn't like people to know, but she was snoring.
Okay.
So in between the snores, I hear a giggle like that. But it sounded like it was either a little, young person or a young girl or something along those lines. I didn't say anything, it was just this. But it was in between the snores, as if somebody was laughing at the snores. Yeah, that sort of thing.
Someone's laughing at her snoring.
Yeah, and I thought, I'd never really might make a laughing sound in between snores. But it was from that side, so it seemed like it was coming from my wife. I did it twice. By then I'm completely awake, so I thought, well, I'll go to the loo while I'm here. I'm not fully awake. I wasn't like got my foot.
Were you fully conscious when you heard this?
All right. Yeah. I thought I was waking up. When
you know, actually hypnopompic experiences. I
was fully awake.
I'm not a skeptic. It's just
no. Yeah. Well, I'm not a skeptic anyway. I've seen loads of things over the years, but because I'd woken up with the foot thing, I'd already woken up, and then hearing that over the next sort of 30 seconds, these two little laughs. That's strange. Anyway, I went to the loo, nothing else happened, and got back in bed, went back to sleep. We got up in the morning. I mentioned this to Carla, my wife, and she said, don't go telling anybody that because we don't want people knowing I'm snoring. They might be making a funny.
Too late now.
Yeah, so anyway, so I said, no, I don't want to say anything like you do, so I won't say it, but I did mention it. Then we went down, had some breakfast, everything was fine, and I need to go to the loo, like you do, so I nip up back to the room again, go to the loo. So I left Carla downstairs, I went back to the room. We go to the little staircase, and then we were on the right-hand side, in ring 3 called Prospect. But you have to go through 2 sets of fire doors to get to the end room on the corridor. Okay. And as I came round and looked through the door, I saw a girl dressed in white with blonde hair, walking as if she was walking straight into our room, because I got the key. And it took me out.
She had a white dress,
like a white dress, like the sort of dresses that you'd wear if you were, really hot summer's day.
Yeah.
Like a meshy sort of almost season. Yeah, women's dress. Blonde hair, sort of this sort of length, thin, like slender. I'd say about 5 foot tall, maybe 5'2". It's quite small. But they got a motion. I got like 1.5 seconds of motion as she moved across. She didn't actually just coming from one room to another. She was actually just moving across that first 2 steps. There was the motion that your head moves when your nose, you move. Couldn't see any features apart from the face, but there was no you couldn't see whether her eyes were, and she was definitely facing just one way, so it was a profile. Just disappeared. As if she just got into the room, basically.
She just went around into the room and then...
Straight across, I walked 2 steps and walked straight to an open door into it, and this is the room I'm going to.
Yeah.
And I've got the key and it's locked. I'm thinking that's a bit strange. So I went through the double doors, checked the door was locked, nobody there. So I came out and then I started telling the people what I'd just seen, and we've asked them to go and have a look at the CCTV anyway. The CCTV on that thing. That was it really.
So is there anything on the CCTV?
Don't know yet.
Goes to Glenn.
Oh, it goes to Glenn.
Oh, you've made it. Oh, that's CC. It can be done so easily, can't it? Yeah.
It is easy.
Nice. That's in the resident. That's in the Black Swan Hotel area.
Yeah.
John, thanks for letting me know about
that.
No problem. Something. So there you are. See, this happened last night, guys.
After we started talking to all the people in there, we talked to some of the staff, and one of the cleaners said that a lady in white's been seen in the kitchen.
nowhere near where this room is. It's a different
Lady in
part
white
of
with
the
a
building.
white dress.
Yeah,
Right.
but I wouldn't have said that this one was a lady in white. Definitely a girl.
Yeah.
Not a lady. You know, the classic sort of lady in white.
Yes.
This was more somebody wearing a summer dress.
Yeah.
20, mid-30s, no older than
Young
that.
woman, yeah.
Definitely not.
Right. Oh, that's well, thanks very much, John. Thanks for sharing that with us. Let us know if you hear anything else.
Yeah, I will do.
If you see anything else. I'll also, if I hear anyone else who's seen strange things like that, I will let you know. If you watching this have seen anything strange like that and you ever stayed in the Black Swan, do let me know.
And the idea was that because she'd been murdered or been the victim of some kind of witchcraft crime, that she couldn't be buried in a proper churchyard. But anyway, this tablet from a house nearby has her name on it, and it has some sigils from the grimoire as well. There was one of those ones that was published in pamphlet form, was in popular circulation. And then we also have, much later, objects like this. This is another curse on the doll. This is a pet doll someone has made that was found behind some panelling in the city of Hereford. This doll dates from the middle of the 19th century. The interesting thing about this one is that under her skirt.
I'm sort of filming secretly or semi-secretly. This is the hotel area of the... I'm with John again. This is the hotel area of the Black Swan. Right, yeah.
These doors were closed.
Right. And where was she?
She was at the far end.
She saw her at the far end here.
Yeah.
So this was... She was just... She didn't see her come through this door.
No, she was walking this way.
Right.
Yeah, so she was coming from here.
Right. She's walked in there. Where were you standing?
I was on the other side, where we were at the corridor.
Right, you're at the end of the corridor here. Oh, she just walked from one room to the other. Right.
So I come from the breakfast area.
Yeah, come out from breakfast.
All this is closed.
Yeah.
And these are closed.
Yeah.
So I'm looking that way, two back to back.
And she just walked from one room into another, like?
She was halfway.
Halfway, she did see.
Didn't come out of the room, she was
Okay, well, thanks very much, John. Much appreciated.
No problems.
This is the Black Swan here in Warrington. I'm just going to... Very nice place. It's a nice little place, actually, yeah. Okay, leaving the Black Swan now, heading back to the venue for the afternoon session of the second day. I had a word with the lady behind the bars. You know, I didn't say I'm ghost hunting or anything like that, or have you heard of the ghost? I just said to this barmaid, I just said, you know, I was furtive. I said, you got a lady staying here with long blonde hair by any chance? I just was casual about it, and she said, oh, I don't know. So I'll let John know that.
He is the leader of a cult who venerate and worship Ned Sherry. And today he's going to be telling us about the appalling, disgusting, dehumanizing rites and rituals that they perform in his name. And these rituals, they are deeply sexual. Deeply sexual. And I have to warn you that there is members of the audience who might find this very disturbing and upsetting. But not me, I can tell you.
After an introduction like that.
Alright guys, just listen to Glenn give his talk about sea serpents. Interesting stuff. I'll say more about it later. A bit of an update on the ghost situation. John asked the chambermaids about it, and they told him I mean, they're the people who would know, because they're the people who probably spend most of the time in those rooms and in the residential parts of the hotel. And they told him that they noticed things like, they didn't mention they saw any blonde women, but they said that they saw the lights keep switching on and off by themselves. Of course, that could be simply a switch, which is a bit wrong, but apparently these things could be fixed. You know, no one's been able to fix it, and they joke that there's a guy switching lights on and off. I'm still baffled by it. I mean, if the blonde woman was a real woman, then
when she went into the room, she did have to jump out the window. And as you can see from there, it's on the top floor there. I don't think that's possible. That's not feasible that someone just went in and jumped out the window, because there's no other way out of that room. Yeah, still an interesting case. Very interesting.
Right, as you can see from, I'll just wait on to set up the camera and get it rolling. I know a couple of people specifically asked me to I don't mind it being correct. Thank you. Yeah, there's something to look at. Can I just ask, is there, how many people takes place between the police and the police station?
Very interesting.
If they have been married or working partners, at that stage, everybody else leaves the room and they have certain
Next item, cryptic creatures. Not saying it's much good because there's a drop there on the front here. Oh, really good. The drop bear is a marsupial, blood-sucking koala bear.
Nice to all these people.
876.
That's next year. Wow. Yeah, it'll probably change. But I think that's still a good lineup, isn't it? Yeah, it's a good lineup.
Mythical creatures colouring book. Probably better than the Cryptozoology one.
I haven't got a raffle ticket. I can't carry any more stuff.
No.
Okay, guys, heading out the venue. One more speaker to go. I've really enjoyed it actually. It's always a bit of a drag when these conferences come to an end, but there's one more speaker. We did the quiz, and Richard doesn't ask some awkward questions, but it was a good quiz. It was quite good fun, and when I do the souvenirs, I'll show you what we won. But, and now the weather's turned out nice. And the pub is shutting early. I can't believe it. They're fools. They really are. That pub is like... It's really missed a sitter this weekend. It really has. I mean, what was it? 200 odd people turn up on their doorstep. Doubling the size of this little village overnight. And you know what? Oh, we're not serving food. We're shutting early. We've got an ABBA tribute band instead. Oh well, it's up to them, I suppose. But anyway, there's another pub. I might go to this other pub down the road if they're really stubborn. All right, so one more speaker and then that's the end of it. Okay, this is Claire Davies Prize in the raffle, and it's a UFO dropping balloons over the Rocky Mountains. That's lovely. That's by Glenn. Glenn is an artist, and I think he's a very good one. It's interesting that they're dropping balloons. Of course, that is what they were all shooting down, weren't they? That's what they apparently the U.S. Air Force are shooting down, but it's not the UFO.
She wasn't involved with our company, but she never came back into the building. It upset her that night. And then probably my final encounter there, I got used to this thing. I used to keep seeing a figure out the corner of my eye. It was a vast place.
We're just waiting for Glenn to come out. He's locking up when we're going to head over to the grave. Yes, I'm curious to see this haunted grave as well. Yes, you might encourage me to go and look at more of these things. Yeah, the conference is over, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just here with Claire, and we put the chairs away. Hello. That's Rob. We're just talking to Rob. Yeah, it's all. The conference is finished, and now it's that sort of aftermath now, which luckily for me is not a sudden event, because you know there's always a Sunday night, you see, for me, because I've got to travel by coach. So we're gonna basically go and have a look at a grave, a haunted grave. There are a few of those, yeah. And then
we're going to go to. We're not going to actually go to the old mucky duck over there. We're going to go to the Red Lion because that's what we call that, the bloody cat. I don't know what you call that. Yes. But we're going to go to the bloody cat, and we're going to have some, because basically the Red Lion knows good business when it sees it. When the Black Swan doesn't. So we're going to go with Red Lion trumps Black Swan. So we're going to go and eat and drink and make merry over there. So waiting for Glenn to finish locking up, and then we'll head off. I hope to get a shot of that grave we're talking about. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to a cemetery now. Now, apparently, Glenn, the organiser over there, thinks he's been doing some research about the ghost, or the blonde lady that was seen in the pub last night, which we talked about earlier. And apparently, she has been identified. This is a woman, this is a spirit of the dead. And we know, well, at least we have an idea of who she is. I mean, obviously, I don't know how you're supposed to prove this. Unless you see a photograph of her and you see the ghost up close and you know that the ghost is the same. But here's the cemetery. You can see the old graves over there, and there's some new ones. There's some shiny new ones over this side. So, please be aware of the dangers of the cemetery. Oh my God, Claire, have you seen that sign? The dangers of the cemetery. I hope it won't be as
graves and hazards.
I hope it won't be as dramatic as the things you were talking about. But yeah, now we're gonna. Apparently, Glenn knows where this lady is. I was going to say her final resting place, but it doesn't seem like it is. No, it's. I don't know what it's like to be a ghost. I mean, obviously, the film Ghost is very good because it does tell a story from the point of view of a ghost, just like The Sixth Sense. Is this her?
Right at the end.
The other one at the end, right? It's that one there.
On Photographs, it seems to think she's around 43.
Yeah.
Minnie White.
Yeah.
April 20th, 1912.
Yeah.
But there was no date of birth.
Yeah.
Oh dear. So we don't know how. You said 43, which means she'd been born around 1872.
But it's a new
1869.
presumably a death date.
Yeah.
One would normally expect that to be a child. But that's not a child's tomb, that's an adult's tomb.
Yeah.
When you've been a child, you don't know that's a
Glenn, what can you tell us about the legend of Minnie?
The legend of Minnie first appears on a Facebook post about items at the children's playground moving. Most likely because of the wind blowing. Instead of the wind blowing, they suggested it was Minnie White. I asked who Minnie White was, and they said it's the local village ghost. Right, where is she? She appears pushing stuff in the playground. She's appeared in houses, banging pans, pots, poltergeist activity. People claim to have called her up using Ouija boards roughly in the late 1970s in the graveyard late at night. She's supposed to be the ghostly woman who can be seen in the graveyard, who I have never heard of anybody encountering or know anything of. Some people claim she is now the ghost of the woman that's seen the Black Swan.
Right, okay.
The trouble with the ghost of the Black Swan, the part of the Black Swan it's seen in used to be the car park.
Right.
The
Is that a
other
new
thing
segment? There's a new development.
It's supposed to be. From here, you can see into a window where she appears. And if you look,
Right. It was the other side of the building now. I know because I went round and looked at the window.
that house, if you look to the fence, it's the last house on the went.
Is that where she lived?
No.
Oh.
That's supposedly where you can see from the grave. Or rather, the story is you can see her from the Went. Oh no, see from here where she lived on the Went.
Okay.
That's the only window of a row of houses you can see. Main problem being there's a row of houses in the way. Now those houses were here in the 1870s, 1880s. Minnie quite clearly wasn't.
Yeah.
So all the only other obstruction thing is the tree.
See, that annex there of the pub is basically where those rooms I showed you earlier were, where John showed us to. And it's the far side by overlooking the car park, which is where she walked towards. There's no way she could have jumped out that window if it was a real person.
With the back of the pub, that was renovated about 10 years ago. Up till that point, that was the car park.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the pub was a lot smaller.
Yeah.
The pond didn't exist. That was just simply a field.
This pond here.
The entrance to the pond was the public toilet. And that was it. So when it was redeveloped, the pub was extended, and the pub acquired a ghost story of a woman. Prior to that, it never had a ghost of a woman.
And now suddenly... See, is this some kind of... Is this a tulpa then? Is this like a tulpa? Do you think?
The ghost...
You know the old story. People think there's going to be a ghost there, so one appears. It's almost like you order one and it... You order one and it appears, yes.
The ghost in the pub is supposed to be the landlord. And it's the landlord in the cellar. The cellar is underneath the bar area. When the pub was redeveloped, the cellar was bricked up.
Was landlord's male? Not landlady, landlord?
No, it was landlord. Then it was, once it was sealed up, there is no record of it being haunted other than this man. Now it's rumoured to be the ghost of Minnie White, but Minnie White seems to be everything.
Right.
As far as I can find, she wasn't a ghost of even anything before 1970s.
Okay.
Nobody older than my age knows of her.
Is there a photograph of Minnie anyway?
Not as far as we've seen. So the other thing is, and I wondered about this, Minnie's is the only grave that when you think about the trees and the undergrowth, and it's also flat enough to put a Ouija board on. And I wonder if it's simply the fact that it's more secluded and it's flat. The other thing is, there's no whites living in the village. Everybody else is related, and you can go through the names.
I noticed, because I just had a quick look at the other names, that there's no other family grave on its own.
Yeah, and I think...
I wonder if she's died.
She may not have been... The fact that no one knows when she was born as well indicates that she wasn't local. She may have just died here, but was not born here.
The other thing that I think, it's simply, you're not going to make this story up about your gran, your great aunt.
Yeah.
You can make it about a stranger because nobody knows who she is. No one's connected to her. So by default, she becomes the ghost.
Is there anything written on the other side?
No, there's nothing.
There's nothing, it's blank. It's just her name, Minnie White, date of birth, death, rest in peace. Poor Minnie, no one...
If she was a stranger and died, if for example she was a traveller that died at the pub, because that's had rooms, before it's extended, that's had rooms. It's a coaching in originally, way back when, so it's also room. If she's been there visiting and has died on her own, no relatives, then they tended to bury them in the thing. In which case, the only place you might get a record of Minnie White, because the death has to be registered, is the records of the church, the parish records, because there will be a record of the burial. In 1912, there will still be a record, because it's in the graveyard, there will be a record of the burial. The other thing is to get hold of the burial record of this graveyard, which might be online, because nowadays with family history sites, what I would do would be to check where the burial records are for Hollingfair Cemetery. And I noticed there's friends of Hollingfair from the village, because I was reading the pamphlet this morning, so they would probably know where the burial records are for the cemetery. And the burial record for this plot should reveal who paid for the burial of Minnie White. If it's done with the parish register, there very well might be a note in the parish records as to because back in up to turn times you get Steve Jones a visitor to the parish or a stranger in the parish.
As far as I know,
Surely no one identified
she
her.
was living in the village. I just think it's fact she was living in the village, died in the village, didn't have any family.
You may be able to use your souvenir, Claire. You maybe have a use for your souvenir right now.
Yeah.
I'll just...
Very few photos, there's a couple of photos.
Because my friend managed to identify the ghost in their garden that kept passing through from the village photo.
Absolutely, yeah. No, definitely not. Yeah. So
thank you so much, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks a lot. So that's Minnie. Poor old Minnie. So we don't know if the entity that John saw today in the pub was Minnie White. We don't know that. We don't unless we have a photograph of Minnie. We've got nothing to compare her with. We don't know she was a blonde woman who wore a white dress. She might have been a redhead who wore a black dress. And of course, after like 111 years, you know, there'll be no one alive who remembers her. So we're now going to go to the pub. We're not going to go to the Mucky Duck. We're going to go to the Bloody Cat, because the Mucky Duck doesn't serve food well enough. So the Bloody Cat is going to win out. Yeah, I mean, it's up to them. I mean, if the Black Swan doesn't want to serve us, that's fine. The Red Lion, the other pub, is actually serving drinks and food. So they're now the hub. They're the social hub for this particular conference. So yeah, there's the cemetery. Well, this is my drink. Your old malt cider, but it's actually Bulmer's. It's actually Bulmer's apple I'm having. Bulmer's original. But we're in the Red Lion right now. And, it's a nice little place, but they're not serving food either. So good job I had a big breakfast. Put it that way. So I'm going to have a drink, and then I'm going to have to go back and do some more filming, I think. Here's all my friends here. We're all sort of like chilling out now. So it's been a great weekend, I think. You enjoyed yourself, Jackie?
Yeah, it's great. Really interesting talk. Yeah.
It's been loads of interesting stuff we've had. It's been great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've just said goodbye to my friends at the Red Lion. I'm now heading back to Warrington. Another hour-long walk. And it's sad to say goodbye, but you know, it's how it goes. And I'll be seeing them again soon, actually. I've got plans to get together again, which of course should be fun. And there will be a reportage for that. I might as well it's not a secret, I'll tell you. I'm going to the Isle of Man. I'm going to the Isle of Man with those people who are at the conference today. It's going to be in July. And yes, I'll be taking my trusty Panmo TV camera for your enjoyment. Can't wait. But I'm now, it's sad. I mean, this is, you know, I don't like this sort of bit at all. You know, I have a real aversion to the post-conference come down, you know, post-conference blues. But it's not too bad. I mean, I don't suffer from it as much as I used to, which is not a sign. It's not a sign that I enjoy conferences less. It's a sign that I'm possibly a more confident and mentally stronger person. So it's something good. I think it's something good that I don't get post-conference blues anymore. I've got a bit of a walk now, as always. Usual walk back to Warrington. And I've got my earphones in. I'll play a bit of Molly, good old Molly. The thing about Molly is, as I was saying this morning about The Present, this novel he's just written, Stephen Molyneux is getting very black-pilled. He really is. He actually, I listened to another of his recent interviews, and he's just said, well, we've done our best, but, you know, it's just, we don't have enough time. You need several generations of peaceful parenting to undo the damage done. There's just too many sick, dangerous, frightened, sad, damaged people out there. And it'll take more than just a few years of philosophy to end that. And although I see his point of view, of course, Molyneux doesn't believe in the things that I believe in, UFO disclosure and stuff like that. And of course, that's why I'm not as black-pilled as he is. think there is a chance for I wouldn't say a peaceful transitional period, but one that is not completely catastrophic as it's depicted in the present. I mean, the present is very dystopian. It is literally the zombie apocalypse, dogs trying to eat people on the streets, that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, he said, oh, we've done our best. Molly said in his recent lecture. He said, oh, we've kind of, you know, we gave it our best shot. I can't think of how it had done better. I thank you all for the effort we've made. Hopefully these shows that I've done and these books I've written will be available for the next cycle of history long after we're gone, and so that we can build a better future in the distant future. He's written a book called The Future, which I want to read now. As I said, I went to but I'm actually going to play one of his older shows for my journey home, and perhaps when he was less black-pilled. I think that's the thing. I think his ban from social media black-pilled him a lot. That's really had an effect, even though, you know, like Richard D. Hall, like everyone who gets banned from mainstream social media, they pick himself up, keep going, that sort of thing. But it does have an effect on you. I don't think you can avoid having some kind of effect on you. So anyway, gonna get back home, back to the hotel, do a little bit of commentary on the day's events, and then go to bed, and then it's off back to so-called normality tomorrow. So, yes, and it's actually it's a quite a pleasant night. It's clear, it's cold and chilly, but it's clear. I can see the moon and stars, so it's a bit of it shouldn't be as long as I don't get 411, it won't be an unpleasant walk. Well, hello everyone, I'm back at the hotel following this very, very enjoyable and successful conference. I'm Sunday night, it's about 11 p.m, and I'm now going to give you a brief rundown of the speakers that were at today's conference. The first one was Rob Gandy was back again to do something called The Bride on the Bridge. Now, this is a very interesting case of ghost sightings on a bridge, which apparently lead to literally to a bride who actually died and appears to be a spirit of the dead. Now, a lot of the discussion, and first of all, I should say that this happened very close to Shugworth Hall, which is a quite esoteric place. There's a famous monument at Shugworth Hall which has an encoded message on, which no one's ever been able to decode. Very odd. I don't have time to go into details now, but it's a very odd case indeed. Very interesting indeed. Now, a lot of this particular talk was taken up over the discussion of a photo near the bridge, which is supposedly of the bride, and it has been denounced as a hoax by many skeptics, and someone has found apparently an image which is similar of a woman in a wedding dress holding a posy, and many people have claimed that therefore this was basically superimposed onto an image of the brickwork behind the ghost, which is the bridge. Now, the problem is, like as I've said before, you never know. It's too easy to fake stuff nowadays. We have an appalling signal to noise ratio problem, really, really bad. Photographic evidence just doesn't carry the same weight that it used to. We've reached a point actually where animation is as good as reality with deep fakes and things like that. And you've got to ask yourself the question: if you see a ghost or Nessie or Bigfoot or UFO, is it worth even photographing it? Because even you will know it's real, but who's going to believe you? Who will believe you that it's real? And this did come up in the Q&A afterwards. CJ Cromer spoke. He was at ASAP in Bath, and he talked about the ghost app. As long as the 90s, there was an app you could put on a mobile phone which allowed you to take very realistic-looking ghost photos. But someone asked a good question, one that I've never considered. If skeptics don't believe in ghosts and they say these photos are fake, what would a real ghost photo look like to a skeptic?
And again, this is something I should ask them, because that's an important point I never thought of before. And yeah, we should ask them that question. Brian Hoggard, now he was up next, and he showed you his stall. He talks about charms built within walls, and this is another thing where we come back to the cunning folk, as I said before. Even after the witch burnings and things like that, many people maintained the traditions of pagan life, including the cunning folk, who were often every village had like a cunning person who, like I say, would be on the periphery of the community, an introvert who avoided contact, but would be respected and approached by members of the community for advice and for healing and things like this. This person would usually be elderly and female, and this is where you get the term, you get the concept of the witch. That's actually all it means. 1 second. Just going to plug in my computer, ladies and gents. The battery is running low, it's informed me. So I will do that now. It's interesting. It's an interesting thing, isn't it? Sorry, guys. It's just won't be a sec. Put that there. There we go. Okay. So that was very interesting. That was an interesting talk there, because he talks about things that, what happens if you live in an old house, sometimes you'll find things. Now, this is usually when the builders move in to do some renovation or repairs. They'll find things embedded in the brickwork, and these are very often small bottles, tiny little bottles, usually the ones you can just fit in the palm of your hand, and they will contain things like blood, vegetable matter, and things like that, broken metal tools such as nails, especially nails very often, and screws, urine, finger or toenail clippings, and blood. I mean, there was actually a TV show I remember when I was a kid. It was for children, and it was a kind of a drama about one of these individuals, one of these things. Now, they're very often found in just simply embedded in the brickwork in very old houses. Sometimes the hearth is very common, in the hearth or the chimney, sometimes by the windows and doors. Sometimes you get them outdoors. They've been found in like stone walls which mark parish boundaries. And other things have been found, such as dead cats, shoes, and I say vegetable matter, and amazingly horse skulls. And it appears this is another thing. Is someone found a statue of Saint John Shaw. Now, this is he was an English priest who, in the 14th century, there was an attempt to canonize him, but it didn't work. But there's a statue of him putting the devil in a boot, and this idea of putting a demonic thing into a container can be found, for example, in the gin bottles of the Middle East. There's also written spells. There's a Welsh one which begins kind of as a prayer, but it then descends into an occult spell with sigils, occult symbolism, astrology, and things like that. And graffiti in churches as well. Sometimes there's graffiti in churches you sometimes need special equipment to detect, because it's faded over the years. Now, it's pretty clear that these date back to earlier times when there was a level of superstition and a level of belief that among common people that various kinds of practices would protect them from evil. Very interesting indeed. And he's written a book which I didn't, haven't bought a copy of. I said I've really bought too much this time. When you see my souvenirs tomorrow, you'll know what I mean. There's also he's organising a conference. I don't know if by the time you watch this, it may be too late. But in York next weekend, there's a conference about this sort of thing. York, of course, is a special place as well, and I actually did tell Lily Brunton about this, who was very, very helpful, and in fact essential in the creation of my York video. Glenn Vaudrey was up next, and he's the organiser of the conference. And he said he wanted to take a new look at classic Scottish sea serpents. There's apparently been 29 beachings of mysterious, or strandings of mysterious creatures on beaches. since 1808. 50 sightings. Of these include things such as giant turtles, many humped serpents, which is rather like Loch Ness Monster. These at sea, though, not in the loch. Now, he believes that they could be seeing known species and mistaking them. For example, the leatherback turtle apparently has been found in British waters. This is the world's largest turtle. There was supposedly a 28-foot long sea serpent washed up at a place called Gurrock, which is in the Firth Clyde. I've actually been there. It's a quite grim place, actually. And it's believed to be what they reckon is it's actually a basking shark. Although there's not enough records. This was actually quite a number of years ago. I think it was just before World War II. The thing about it is, like, sharks have no bones. So I think maybe someone didn't notice that. They have like a cartilage skeleton, sharks, but they have no bones. The only hard substance they have is their teeth and jaws are the only hard substance they have in their bodies. And this body, we don't know because this body was cremated. There's other things that they've... Oh, by the way, Glenn says they've tried to track down maybe any trace of it. The crematorium has been... The site of the crematorium has been examined. It was demolished a long time ago. There's something called a water horse. There was actually a film called The Water Horse, I remember. This possibly... because it looks like a horse in the water. This could be a walrus. And... sea serpents might actually be grey seals. Also, submarine periscopes. I mean, I don't know about submarine, because grey seals can actually stick their heads up like submarine periscopes. And of course, periscopes do sometimes look like a beast sticking its head out the water. The problem is, these submarines are a relatively new invention. You know, effective submarines only date back just over a century. So something the turn of the 20th century. Long-necked beasts were seen before then. Like their plesiosaurs or something. I don't know if they're plesiosaurs. But see, plesiosaurs are reptiles. They're dinosaur-type creatures. And so they'd be air-breathing. My guess, it's a fish or a shark that people are seeing. Of a very unusual kind, obviously. Steve Jones was up next, talking about Masonic Wicca. Before he began his talk, he says, "I'm going to give you a nudity warning. If you're under 16, you have to leave the room. Otherwise, I could get into trouble." Indeed, he shows naked people in it because he shows a couple of shots from initiation into Wicca. Wicca is a syncretic religion of neo-paganism. It's one of the most successful in the world. And according to Steve, it's the only religion that Britain has given to the world. Everything else we've adopted, like Christianity, which originates from the Middle East. Judaism, Islam, Christianity, all emerged from the Middle East, and we've adopted them. But Wicca, he sees, similar to Freemasonry, he says, because he shows some pictures of some people. Indeed, they are stripped naked. Well, the women, there's a picture of a woman who's stripped naked, completely naked, and she has her hands tied behind her back and has a hood over her head, or a blindfold, called the hoodwink, which is where you get the term hoodwinks. Man often has his chest bared. He doesn't have to strip completely naked, but he has his chest bared, and his trouser leg is rolled up to the knee. This again is to check that he's a man. So he has a flat masculine chest, and he has plenty of leg hair. A woman, of course, would have breasts and much less, if any, leg hair, apparently. But there are female Masonic orders. I know somebody who's a member of one, a woman who's a member of a female Masonic order. There's also, Steve says he was involved in a secret society called the Order of the Buffalo. They're known as the Buffs. I couldn't help laughing when I heard that, Order of the Buffalo. They're kind of a quasi-Masonic, pseudo-Masonic outfit. I don't know anything about them, other than Steve actually joined them. He mentioned the book Born in Blood, which I've read. It was actually given to me by a brother Porter, who was a Freemason. Yes, make of that what you will. He mentions Elias Ashmole, who was... Elias Ashmole was a very famous figure in Oxford. It's for him that the Ashmolean Museum is named after. And I got up, excuse me, during the middle of Steve's talk just to get the shot you saw of the stall of Rob Hoggard's stall is actually what's his name? Brian Hoggard. Sorry, it's actually took that during Steve's talk, which is really quite rude of me. But you see, as soon as Steve was finished, they started packing up, and I wanted to get a shot of that stall. So interesting talk there by Steve. I learned a lot from that, and I learned a lot from all the speakers actually. And the final speaker, David Adams, My Encounters with the Other Side. And this is based on an article written by Rob Gandy in the Fortean Times. It was under a pseudonym. He called himself a fake name until someone else was prosecuted in court for fraud, and he thought, well, I better use my real name, or people think that's me. But anyway, this guy, David Adams, actually was born on the same day as Rob Gandy, interestingly. He's seen several things in his life: a lady in a dress in a bedroom, which is a bit like what John saw, didn't he, in the hotel, that guy John. A transparent lady. This wasn't at the hotel, I should point out. This was when he was young, when he was a child. Footsteps at midnight in various places, and someone swearing at him. Someone got into his car and said, "Get me the fuck out!" Literally, that was a quote. This happened near a very interesting place, actually called the Palace Hotel. It's the Birkdale Palace Hotel. Now this is a quite spooky thing indeed, because there was an old hotel. It was actually demolished in the late 60s. And it had a dark reputation. There was about 11 murders there and things like that. Now, when the demolition people went in, they cut off, of course, when you're knocking down a building, they cut off all the power. So there's no electricity feeding the building. But then the lift started to move. Skeptics have put this down to it being having its own internal power supply. That this is actually apparently not noted by the engineers who were demolishing the building. They would need to know this for safety's sake. If there was like an emergency, like battery supply power for the lift, because that could be dangerous. But they said there was no such power supply. The lift was moving by itself from floor to floor. It's very strange, with no power. And then they cut through the lift's cables, and it still kept moving, even without the cables to support it. And then eventually, they eventually got into the lift shaft and started whacking it with sledgehammers. And only then did the lift crash to the bottom of the shaft. Very strange story, what got into the local papers. There's a haunted hospital in Birkdale as well, and several other things as well. There's the Ainsdale Lido, where there's a ghost apparently called Fred. This is in Southport, by the way. And he heard and David heard a voice in his ear saying Fred. This is similar to what happened to me at Binsey Church. Do you remember my video called what was it? St. Frieswise Night, where I heard that voice in my ear. It's very strange. Nothing appears on the video, but you can hear it in my ear. He was looking up at a window once. His mother saw this too, and his brother, who he doesn't get on with his brother, but they were basically playing together for one of the few times. And he looked up a window in his house, and a hand appeared on the window like that. And he rushed outside to see where the hand was coming from. This was on an upstairs window, so it must have been someone very tall or on a ladder. Couldn't find anyone. No one was there. He said, despite all these things that have happened, only one thing really scared him. This happened on the Liverpool Road in Birkdale. He said, this made me really scared. It was just a feeling, a presence of evil in this house when he was in this room. He was playing with his brother again, and it appeared in front of him, and it made him feel awful. He also had a time slip, which is interesting. This is something I've experienced too, which is very, very time slip, as you know from my bases at the Black Swan, where I talk about that. It's just where you suddenly have a vision of being in the same place, but in what appears to be a different time. That's what it looked like to me. I was just basically at the Bases Project conference at the Black Swan, and we were in the function room, and well, I don't have to tell the full story here because I'd covered it in a separate video and indeed an article, but I just suddenly found myself looking at what appeared to be some time in the past. Very odd that. So great series of speakers for the second day. You may have noticed there were fewer people in the room, and I don't think this is because of the quality of the speakers. It was more like it's just some people had to get home because some people can't get Monday off and things like that. It's very often I find with conferences that the second day, if it's usually a weekend conference, Saturday and Sunday, the second day, the Sunday, is not so well attended as the first. So that's actually quite normal. So yeah, anyway, that's the end of the conference. I've now just got to spend the night here in this hotel, and then tomorrow will be spent getting home. So I'll be covering that experience. I'll be covering that experience as we go along. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again. You know what it means. It's souvenir time. Let's go through these souvenirs now. This is one of the books I got. Colin Wilson, The Occult, the ultimate book for those who walk with the gods. And there's the you can pause and read that, which is very, very interesting. Now, this is a really cheap. It's only £1. It's a classic one though, published 1971. I don't know what that means there. But you see some testimonials here. This edition is this is quite old. The pages are coming out a little bit. The perfect binding. First published 1971. This is edition 1979, and there's, you can read that. Now, Colin Wilson, a fascinating chap, but above all, more important than that, he was a hospital porter, which is the reason I chose that book. I've got look how many 14 times I've got 7 copies of 14 old back copies of 14 times. This is from 2020. Alien Autopsy. Crash Saucers. The Perils of Pixie Hunter. The Man Who Would Be Q. That's not Juan. Is that Juan de Fuchsia or the other guy, Juan Savin? There's all sorts of bloody miracles, strange phenomena. This is the 14 Book of Ghosts. I got that book. I read it when I was a little kid. I must have had an interest at a young age, you know, because I read that when I was a little kid. November 2019. And oh, this looks scary. Dead and Buried. This is from 2009. This is a really old one. When corpses come to life. Oh, God, blimey. Zombie time. Egyptian Gothic. Scramble UFO. Ooh, scary. Yeah, you love FT. And, of course, Q, the mother of all conspiracy, or should I say the 17th letter. And there's the 22. Here's a classic one from 2012. That's from March 2012, just a few months before the big day. The end of the world, yeah. Could UFOs be living creatures? Now, Nick, I got this because of Nick Hayes, basically. I'll probably send him that, unless he hasn't read it already. Very interesting. And so that's all my FTs. I found my ticket, which I thought I'd lost, I found in the end. Yeah, that's amazing, that, isn't it? That's some earphones. That's my toothbrush. Here's my lovely notebook, which I showed you earlier. That's this, isn't it? Now, this is my prize. Now, I got a prize for winning the quiz. But there was a quiz, and there were 2 teams, and I won it. Well, my team won it, yeah. Cryptid Trumps. Although Richard Freeman was saying, those are not cryptids! All right. This is my book. You've seen this before. It's one of my reading books, Cheating the Ferryman. Now I finished The Present by Molly. I'll probably start on that one for the journey home. That is my Manchester A to Z, which I showed you earlier. Old-fashioned, but I love them. Now this is what's this, a business card for, I think I'm a member of their group, Paranormal and Cryptid Researcher, Mick McLaren, Winter Hill Investigation Team. Yeah, I think I'm a member of their group on Facebook. There's a QR if you want to check that out. That is some moisturiser. That's a crushed coffee cup. That is my pen. That is my phone charger. I've got a few more things. I've got a few more chargers over there. You don't particularly want to see them, do you? All right, those, ladies and gentlemen, are my souvenirs for this particular adventure. Weird Weekend North 2023.
Well, I've just had breakfast. It was very nice too. Now, I have to head off home in a minute. The sun's come up, as you can see there. Now, you may remember earlier in the video, I told you I'd done something very controversial, and some of you viewers may not approve. Well, what I did was I bought this. I now have my very own Ouija board. Now, the prime reason I bought this actually is because I think it's a wonderful work of art. It was created by that lady who ran the store, which I showed you, and her granddaughter. And
you had these wooden boxes here. This is just the cover, the box, and it's exquisitely painted and designed. And if I open it up here, you can see inside, this is the certificate of authentication. Certified Authority Ouija board, exclusive design, 100% handmade by Lorna and her nan. There's, it doesn't have, it says, it's called Into the Void. Nan, there we are. And so here it is. I think I might have showed you this actual one earlier, before I bought it off the stall. It doesn't have numbers, but it has a yes and a no, and all the letters there of the alphabet. And that is the planchette, and you just move it around like that until you find what you're looking for. Now, even though I know, like I said, this is controversial and you may not approve, I couldn't resist it. I just wanted to have it as a work of art, really. I'm not going to go messing around with it. If I use it at all, it'll only be in very, very controlled circumstances with proper supervision and the knowledge. Don't expect me just to do a live stream of ad hoc when I'm drunk and start using the Ouija board, because I won't. But yeah, I just couldn't resist it. It's like it's kind of I suppose it's a thrill to have one of these. It's because they do have this reputation, which I think makes them quite. Yeah, it does make it kind of. There's a bit of mystique with having a Ouija board. So there you go. I'm now a Ouija board owner. For better or for worse. If I start turning into a zombie or something, you'll know why. Anyway, time to go home, I think. It's a lovely morning. Very cold outside, apparently, according to the weather forecast, so I better wrap up warm. Right, okay, I managed to get on the bus. They haven't gone cashless yet, thank goodness for that. I'm now riding in the bus along the same road I've been walking on for the last 3 days. So, hopefully this will... There's no actual rush to get to Manchester because my coach doesn't leave till 11:30. So, and it's quite a nice drive actually. The one last time I used this bus, it was a very pleasant drive, very pleasant bus ride, leisurely, picturesque. And you remember from the last year's reportage on Weird Weekend North. So it's a nice morning. I can't see a cloud in the sky. There's no chemtrails. It's very cold though. It was freezing last night. Frost, there's a bit of frost. Oh goodness me. You are sentenced to 20 years inside the toilet. How do you appeal? Okay guys, I'm back in Manchester now. Lovely drive as you saw there, through Cheshire and the western Greater Manchester. I'm at the Shoedale Interchange bus stop, bus station where I've just got off. Yeah, I mean, I'm just stunned. I mean, I really am. I mean, what kind of city is this where a public toilet looks like the entrance to a prison? I mean, I know some have turnstiles on and you've got to pay, but that is like that's not your kind of turnstile you normally get on a bog. Oh, dearie me. You know what, Charlie Veach has gone a bit nuts. Oh dear. So I'm now going to make my way. I've got a leisurely walk through town. I've got to remember my Ouija board wherever I go, because I'm bringing it with me. Basically, I've got a leisurely walk now. It's about 9:30, 9:45, so I've got an hour or so to kill to get to the coach station, and so I'm going to see if I can find any crackheads. Just say to me, "Not allowed." To be honest, it'd be fun if I saw Charlie Beach. It would actually be quite good fun. I wouldn't be nasty to him. I'd have a laugh with him. I think I've already made this point, but you know, I'm not angry with him. I think he's a fool for what he did all those years ago. I mean, it's now 12 years ago, for goodness sake. I mean, let's move on. And I wouldn't be nasty to him if I saw him. Hey guys, maybe things aren't so bad after all. I may be in a city where the public toilets look like Alcatraz, but I found a spoons. All is well with the world. I'm at the coach station.
got that evil white man. I'm on a coach down to the first leg to Birmingham. Amazingly, every seat was full and almost everyone's got off. They got off at Birmingham Airport. So, strange now.
Seat is available at the front of the coach. Priority is given to wheelchair users or other assisted travel customers, so please be aware you may be asked to move seats. During your journey, your driver will keep you updated with announcements during your journey when it is safe to do so. Please be considerate of your driver and other people around you throughout the journey, and be mindful of other passengers' personal space. Sexual harassment or any kind of antisocial behaviour will not be tolerated, and we will fully support police prosecution. If you feel unsafe at any time, please seek support from your driver or use our text feedback service as shown on the window stickers. If you are listening to music or watching a film, please wear headphones to minimise noise for other passengers. Smoking of any kind and drinking of alcohol is not permitted at any time anywhere on this coach. In the event of an emergency, safety information is displayed within this vehicle for your information. First aid kits and fire extinguishers are fitted on this coach and clearly marked. In the unlikely event of an evacuation, emergency exits are located at the front and rear. Additional emergency exits are also available at marked windows and can be broken using the emergency hammers provided. Using the onboard facilities. Toilet facilities are available on board.
Where are the life jackets?
Please take care when using these facilities, washing your hands thoroughly after use. Arriving at your destination. When you arrive at your destination, your driver will leave the coach first to help disembark all customers
Don't
safely.
go ahead of him, whatever you do.
Please take care when leaving the coach. Use the handrails at all times. Finally, make use of our real-time coach tracker app to track your journey progress. Don't forget, National Express also offer holidays, weekend and city breaks to hundreds of destinations across the UK. You will always find the best deals by booking directly with us online at nationalexpress.com, where you can also sign up to My Account and won't pay booking fees. It's the hassle-free way to manage your bookings with us. Now please sit back, relax and enjoy your journey.
That's it, I feel thoroughly guilty and terrified, but I will still sit back and relax. So. Right, I'm in Birmingham again, this, I call it place, and I find this hard to believe that there are still roadworks here outside Digbeth Coast Station. Now, you guys who watch regularly will probably be able to tell this more accurately than I do, that I know. How many years now have there been roadworks outside this coast station? How many years have I come here, walked out here and seen roadworks outside this coast station? Because, you know, I've forgotten. It's got, I estimate it's probably more than 3 years. Baffling, absolutely baffling. What on earth can they be doing that takes that long? You know, when they're just all they're doing is fixing the road. I mean, what's going on? Anyway, it seems this pavement's a bit narrow. It seems there's another pavement where there's a bus stop now over there, which wasn't there before. This Digbeth kitchen, where I've sometimes go and have some meatballs. But I'm gonna try and get into the Kerryman. I mean, I used to go into the Kerryman pub for a beer. I don't even know if it's still there. It's somewhere on that side of the road. Might as well be on the other side of town. Oh no, I think it's gone, you know. I think the Kerryman's gone. It's that pub there. There seems to be some sort of crossing, so I'm going to go and try it now anyway. Hello. So I don't donate cash or goods on the street. Take care. All right.
You couldn't get me something from the shop?
No, I don't donate cash or goods on the street. All right.
I'm saying, can you get me something from the shop?
No, that's a good. Goods. I don't donate cash or goods. All right. Take care. Here we go. So, you see, it's still. It's like I don't understand what's going on. Pipes here anyway. I'm gonna go see if I think it's shut. I think it's gone. Yeah, look. Looks like it's demolished. It's going to be demolished. So we've got at least I can get over to the other side now and have a look. Here we go. We'll press that button, I suppose. There we are. Anyway, you can see the bull ring up there. See, just in the distance there. So we. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't like this place is just. I mean, I don't mean any offence to people like Dave Hodrian who lives here, you know, it's his home. But I just find this place so depressing. Yeah, Gillette, the Kerryman has gone. It's a shame I never got to go in there again. So I'll just see if I can find myself another pub, because I fancy a pint. Yeah. What's this here? Digworth Works Lounge. It's obviously, that's obviously also shut. Maybe it's just being refurbished. Anyway, this is the old Kerryman. Oh dear. Doesn't look. Doesn't look like it's complete. It looks like it's shut, but it doesn't look like it's gone. There's a bar still there. Tables. Looks like it's just shut for a day or something. Well, I'll try it again another time. Oh, well, actually, I found a pub that is open. It's the Bullring Tavern. I've been in here before. Still open now, which is nice. And what's more, it takes cash. There's so many places don't, do they? I forgot to mention there's been a little problem with when I was in Manchester. When I was about to get on the coach, the driver said he couldn't let me board. Now, I've got a properly formatted ticket, but he said my name just wasn't on the list. Cheers. He said my name just wasn't on the list, you know. It's like that old song, your name's not down, you're not going in. And so even though my ticket was properly formatted, he said I had to go over to the office and confirm it. And when he was boarding, I didn't know how long he was going to be there. So I said, will you wait for me? He says, well, I've got to go when I board. So I went over to the office. Luckily there was someone there, because the reception desk for National Express in Manchester is it's only manned like about half of the time. Luckily there was a lady there who looked it up, and literally within a couple of minutes she had me sorted. I just went back to we both went back to the bay and took the driver, and she told the driver, and I got on board. Anyway, I've just been down to the National Express desk here at Digworth, just in case the same thing happens again. And there's a lady who told me she's going to be there at 3 o'clock to make sure I get on board. Okay, so excellent service, National Express, very well done. Well, assuming it happens at 3 o'clock, we'll see. Well, I'm on the coach now in Birmingham, last stage of the journey, apart from getting home in Oxford. And well, there's no problem. The guy just looked at my ticket and said, fine. He didn't check me on the list, he didn't have a list of numbers or anything like that. He didn't scan the QR code, he just said get on. That's cool. So I've got my little FT to read here, one of the ones I got from the conference from back in 2012, that was. And it's just under 2 hours now to Oxford. Right. Okay, I've just got off the coach here in Oxford. Here we are in Oxford. I've got my bag. I remembered that. I didn't forget it. Back home in Oxford. And, well, that's the coach I was on. And, well, I don't know if you'll be shocked or proud of me. But guess, believe it or not, I've been flirting. Yes, I have. I'll tell you more about it in a minute. Oh yeah, I'm going to get a lot of comments about this, I'm sure. That's oh, I've been flirting. Yes, I was flirting, and I think that's quite a good thing, really. Yeah, it's a good thing, because what it was. I got on the coach in Manchester, and I was sat behind this lady who, you know, the coach was packed, so I had to get an aisle seat, and I ended up sitting next to this sort of a woman who was kind of like, I don't know, Eastern European or something, continuously muttering into her mobile phone about God knows what in her own language. And in front of me, I could see through a gap in the seat, there was this other lady who
was, nice looking. That's all I knew about her at the time. And I just think, I should have sat next to her. I can't really get up and go and sit next to her now. That's a little bit creepy, you know. So I just thought, but I kept looking at her through the gap between the seats, and sometimes she looked back and sort of smiled at me. And this is the sort of thing, incidentally, that they want to ban. They want to ban on London Underground, by the way. They'll probably be listed as staring and I'll get arrested. Yeah, even something as harmless as that. They're going to list. They want to outlaw on London Underground. So like I said, I was a bit stressed out because of that issue with the ticket, but I soon calmed down. And after a while, at Manchester Airport, like, in fact, I was filming at the time. You saw it, and everyone just got off the coach. Everyone just got off at the airport, and I moved to a seat. I moved to another seat, not next to her, but I moved from the seat I was in. Oh, the lady sitting next to me. She didn't get off, but I moved to another seat. It was a good excuse like to get away from that seat to a one, because there was only like about, there was loads and loads of like double seats left, so I moved to one where we got double seats, so we're not like scrunched next to each other. And I was looking over, and it's just the usual thing, you know, just looked over and sort of caught each other's eye a few times. You know how it is. I just smiled, as I said. At one point I said hello, you know, when we got off the bus I just said, see ya. I just said that one. We got off the coach at Birmingham. Just to see her, and she got off, and I thought, well, she's obviously, and I saw her walk towards the, the start, you know, the Starbucks and things like that. And she was putting on her jacket, and I thought, well, she's obviously this is obviously her destination, so that's it. It's the end of her journey, so I'm not going to get into a conversation with her. I'll go on the coast to Oxford, as you saw, and literally just after I filmed that little segment when I was on the coach at Oxford, just a bit noisy around here. I might carry on this video. I'll carry on this little saga when I've got past the noisy bit. So yeah, so it's just literally moments after I filmed that little segment on the coach at Birmingham Station. Guess who comes up the aisle? This same woman. And she actually, and this time she actually spoke to me. She said, "Oh, I see you've got the seat with the extra legroom this time." And I said, "Yeah." And before you know it, we got into a conversation. And of course, like, it's all very intimate because you're like sitting on the seat next to each other. And she's quite like quite a stocky lady, you know. So, I mean, I'm attracted to women like that, I must say. She's quite sort of stocky. And so you're never to be like pressed up against each other, you know? So there's something very intimate about it, I must say. You know, she joked at one point and said, "Oh, this is cosy, isn't it?" And then we talked about things, and after we just talked about various things. She just talked about her holiday. She'd just come back from holiday in Tenerife, staying with her friend in Blackpool, and then she was leaving. She spent one day with her friend in Blackpool, and she said, "This is my oldest friend. She was a nurse, this lady. We trained as nurses together 37 years ago." I thought, "Oh, brilliant." I mean, this lady sort of like, in terms of age-wise, she's probably slightly older than me, which is actually, again, that's I do quite like women like that, sort of 60, 65, even older. I mean, I've always been like that. I've always liked older women, probably because a habit I got when I started dating, because most girls my own age were bloody awful. They weren't interested in me, and I wasn't interested in them. But yeah, I mean, I think I had the personality even when I was quite young. When I was in my late teens, starting to date, I tended to appeal more to women, you know, 10 or more, 10, sometimes even 20 years older than me, because they tend to like the kind of man I was more than the women of my own generation. Anyway, this lady was probably like based 60, maybe a bit younger. She's just semi-retired from nursing, and she lives on the Isle of Wight, been on holiday in Tenerife. And literally, though, we exchanged names, and we asked her
asked things about ourselves and everything like that. All on the journey, we talked all the way on the journey. We were reading, and I was reading a little bit as well of FT, and she was like fiddling with her phone, as people do. And we talked about all the way. Like I said, this is an attractive lady, nice looking, nice voice. Of course, I don't know her, but you know, we exchanged names, and at the end, when I got off at Oxford, I just wished her a pleasant journey, and she said, "Oh, you too," and all this sort of thing. Nice to meet you, that kind of thing. But the thing is, like, she asked me what I was reading at one point, and I showed her 14 times, and she said, "Oh, what's that?" And I asked her about it, and she said, "Oh, that's not my kind of thing." I thought, right. So, needless to say, I didn't leave her my phone number, because as you 14 times is probably one of the least excessive things that I'm into, and you know, she may discover the rest, because I showed her the gas spanner. I said I do a radio show at Hospital Portering, because I'm an ex-hospital porter and stuff like that, and we had a long talk about hospital life and hospital work. So she saw the gas spanner, so she might see my other radio programmes. What would you think? Oh my God, I spent 2 hours sitting next to a nutcase. He believes in aliens and ghosts. Oh God. Yes, I think she is a normie. But like I said, I enjoyed talking to her. I enjoyed looking at her, you know, smelling her, and you know, that sort of thing. It's all perfectly innocent, I think. And appropriately, I'm in the you know what place in Oxford, so I think that's very apt considering what I'm talking about. And well, I guess that's the end of my little adventure. All went well. I did remember the Ouija board. I didn't leave it behind the hotel. I didn't leave it on any coach. I didn't leave it lying around anywhere in places which I was scared about doing. I have little memory aids. I hold my toothbrush in my hand. Well, that means I've got to remember things, you know. So it's because I get distracted and I remember things like that. Yeah, but basically, it's been a damn good conference. It's been another really, really good Weird Weekend North. Many thanks to Glenn for organising it, and for all the other people who helped him organise it, and for the caterers, and for the speakers and the other delegates. It's been fun to hang out with my old friends. I'm looking forward to seeing them again. And I will soon, because we're going to the Isle of Man together. If I don't see them before then, I don't think there's a Lapis conference this year. There's no sign of any probe conference, but there will be other events when we get together, you know. And yeah, I don't think I've actually mentioned to you before the Isle of Man trip that's coming up, but it is. It's the end of July. It's at the end of July, just before the Glastonbury Symposium. Yes, I'm going to that too, and there will be a reportage of that too. But I'm going to spend 8 days on the Isle of Man. Yeah. So we'll be looking for Jeff the Talking Mongoose and lots of other strange things on that enigmatic island. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, Weird Weekend North 2023, big success. Of course, I'm back to normal. I'm back to normality now, but you know, it's fun while it lasts. And there'll be more from me coming soon. I've got a couple of ideas for new videos maybe later in the week. In the meantime, thank you for watching Her Panwo TV. Hospital Porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.